Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have roll call, please?
Alderman Keehan. Alderman Zielinski. Alderman Benner. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Krautkramer. Alderman Collier. Alderman Spencer and Taylor have been excused.
The first item on the agenda this evening is people from the gallery to be heard on matters pertaining to the agenda. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak tonight?
Tim Jacobson, 732 Paris Street. Couldn't stay away today seeing the number 18 dump truck being replaced this year. I don't know if any of you realize it or not, but that was the first vehicle that wasn't Omaha orange in our fleet. And it was the start of our identity of the community and the Department of Public Works, and it really did its job. Just to give you some history, at that time when that purchase was made, we had 3 motor graders, and one of them was used only in the winter. And we were staring at the new yard waste and recycling law, which we knew we were going to have a more hauling capacity, and the motor grader was a good chance to make that change. But we didn't want to lose the plow length that the motor grader had. So we went with the triaxle Peterbilt. It gave us everything we needed to do. I can give you the specs off the top of my head. 8.3 liter block, MT654 transmission with a split rear end to compensate for the lower horsepower, because we were really conservative at that time getting into where we were going. But it did its job. Newspaper guy, it was really a unique purchase for a city our size. We spent $96,000 on it. And in 2002, 2003, when we were doing a preliminary investigation for its replacement, which would be on a normal cycle for municipal vehicles, we realized that the box was showing its normal municipal deterioration with the corrosion and things. But the cab and the chassis were still as tight as the day it came, and it had relatively low mileage. So we spent another $35,000 to put a new box on it and upgrade the hydraulics and put a spreader on the back. And just to give you an indication, in 2010 when we replaced 2 dump trucks, they ran about $180,000. Now when we were going with this vehicle, the salesman brought a chassis down and to demonstrate it to public, some of the council members and city folks, and he made mention that it would be a 20-year vehicle. And Marge Neshek, at that time, Alderman Marge Neshek, bless her heart, said, well, are you going to warranty it for 20 years? And the salesman, of course, eyes bugged out. He said, no, I don't think we can do that. But it turned out to be 26 years. The city of Menasha put out an outlay of less than $140,000 for a vehicle that lasted 26 years. And it probably will last longer. Somebody's going to want that vehicle, but it's time for it to go for our purposes. The news reporter rode along with our operator, Rick Leiphauser, when we put it out on the snowplow, and he made the comment that, holy cow, this is like a Cadillac. Because at that time, the vehicles that were being purchased, this was an upgrade, a real upgrade. Charlie Hines, in the It's Your Call, asked, what do we need a Cadillac in Menasha for? Well, 26 years later, this is why you need that. This is why you look not so much at the initial outlay, but what this vehicle is going to do for you for 26 years. 6 years over a projected lifespan. And I'd bet a dime on a dollar today that chassis and those doors are still tighter than vehicles of other brands that are half its age. That's how well those vehicles are made. And it gives, that brand gives the city of Menasha the best bang for its buck. And I want you to be able to have confidence in your department. This is what we do, or this is what they do now. We go to shows, they go to shows, they go to seminars. Have faith in them. They know what they're doing, and if they have questions, they know where to go to get those answers. But this vehicle, and I'm gonna make sure I get my photograph when it goes down the road, because I got a picture of it when it came, and I'm gonna get one when it goes. But trust your people out there at the Department of Public Works. They know what they're doing, and if they have questions, they know where to go to get the answers. But this is what you have to maybe put a little more outlay at the start, so you get a lot more throughout its life and for the legacy of the vehicle. You're not going to find a better deal than this vehicle gave the city of Menasha. You're really not. And if I remember correctly, we were receiving probably about 7% of the initial outlay back in trade-in value on other vehicles. And I'd be willing to bet you're at least 10% on this one. But have faith in your guys. Listen to them. They know what they're doing. And if they have questions, like I said, they know where to get the answers. This is their job. This is what they do. But this vehicle was the first. This is what set the bar. And with the expense of the vehicles going up dramatically in the early part of the century, you need a vehicle that you're going to be able to extend the life out a little longer, and this brand does it for the community. I'd like to thank you, and don't forget the Bray study. If you're going to do another study on Jefferson Park, let everybody know what the Bray study is too. That public works facility needs to be done, especially the maintenance facility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening?
Sandra DeVille Taylor, 545 Broad Street. I was here at your first meeting and I'm here at your last meeting. And I basically just wanted to come with a couple general comments, because I doubt very much if anything's going to get really slashed out of this budget. And the last time I was here, I brought up a few things, and it was kind of like I got the impression that you took it personally. I was looking at a spreadsheet, and tonight I was looking at a spreadsheet. Nothing is aimed at any one individual, but I kind of got that response from a lot of comments that were made. So just to let you know, none of this is personal. It's just money, and at least give me credit for showing up and trying to understand this. So first of all, I just wanted to mention a few things I have questions about. Number one, you're talking tonight about the health department, which includes the senior center. I think one of the big elephants in the room is, again, nothing against the senior center, but Goodwill is seriously considering developing a senior center since Thrivent no longer is running the Thompson Center. No community in the Fox Valley, at least immediate community, City of Menasha, City of Appleton, Fox Crossing, runs a senior center like Menasha does. We're open to all residents of Winnebago County. And yes, we get a lot of funding from Winnebago County, but if they go ahead and build a facility on Valley Road, are we going to keep our senior center open? I mean, it's pretty much going to be duplication of services, and honestly, I don't think we could meet the services that they would provide. So I think it's something to consider, something to look forward to into the future. That's another piece of property that was recently renovated, that on our main street that could possibly go back on the tax roll. Because personally, I don't think financially it's smart to have two of them. I mean, just looking at dollars and cents. And again, it's nothing against the senior center or the people that work there. And also in line with the health department, I know They do a great job. It's like I'm up here trying to defend everybody. But I know a few years ago, Nina combined with Winnebago County to provide services. Menasha elected not to because we were split between Winnebago and Calumet County. But I'm curious as to, obviously Nina must be satisfied with the services that they're being given. Are we doing like an overkill? Are we providing more than what our population really needs? And also in respect to so many services are aimed at the school district, should a lot of those costs be shifted to the school district and not just left to the city of Menasha taxpayer? Because the school district encompasses more than just the city. So I just wanted to throw that stuff out there as food for thought. Then, also last time I mentioned things regarding community development, and I'm really not happy, as you know, with the creation or the amount of money that is being thrown into this housing rehab. Because I still come from the premise of small things matter. I'm grateful we have a code enforcement. I'm grateful that we are looking to hire a building inspector. And I still look at it that it's kind of like lipstick on a peg, that you're throwing huge amount of dollars. There was $400,000 in TIF 13 allocated, future increment. We have $60,000 in this year's budget, and now the most recent TIF, we threw more money into it. So, I mean, the $50,000 annually was just passed last Monday. So that's roughly, I mean, $500,000 of excess increment when it becomes available as seed money for the housing authority. And it's not that I'm against the program, but we don't have anyone to run it, and the person that we want to hire to run it is also going to be the building inspector. So they're going to be wearing two hats, and it's going to be a lot of work for one person to manage. And on top of it, I still think if you have a neighborhood and you have one problem house that needs code enforcement, it's much easier to address that one house before it turns into two houses, or one business that's causing problems, and then you have two businesses. And then all of a sudden, the neighborhood starts to decline, and it's not necessarily the house itself, it's the people that really don't care, or the business that really doesn't care. And then all of a sudden you have property values declining because the neighborhood's declining. So I do feel code enforcement is what is really needed, and this building inspector, to make sure that is all in the line before we start just dishing out money for projects. It's one of those things that I'm adamant about. And I see it in my neighborhood because property values, assessed property values, are going down. Houses are selling below assessed value. And it's not because of the house, because improvements are being made to the house. It's due to the neighborhood. And that's my issue. Then as far as the budget itself goes, and we're talking seed money, there is the Fox Cities Regional Partnership. And I checked with Peggy to find out where it is because I couldn't find it. There are two locations in the budget where we are allocating basically our population, $17,000. One is on page 26 under marketing, 9,250, and then page 183, marketing from TIF 6, 8,750. The city of Appleton, in last week's newspaper, they have a population of roughly $75,000. They're only allocating roughly 50% of their population. They're putting $36,000 into the Fox Cities Regional Partnership. I think we should be doing 50% too. And that 50% not go to the Fox Cities Regional Partnership, but used as seed money to create a bid district downtown. Get it started downtown, have the business owners take over the events downtown, the farmer's market, the lighting of the Christmas tree, festivals that people want. Use that as seed money to get something started. We have new businesses down there than when it was first proposed, roughly 5 years ago. I think that's something that should be looked at. For me, I know the mayor likes to use the Fox Cities Regional Partnership to retain businesses and attract millenniums. Personally, I think it's the mayor's job to retain businesses. He should be knocking on the doors saying, what do you need? Do you need better infrastructure? Do you need better parking? You know, we got Menasha Utilities here. What can we do to help you? And then likewise,
Okay, you're hitting almost double your time, Mrs.
Okay.
Taylor, so if we
All
could
right, well,
get you to
anyhow.
finish up.
Mill Street, there's 135,000 in the budget. I'm curious, it's also in the TIF District 13. So I'm curious how that, but it doesn't say it's coming out of TIF. Jefferson Park, there's 6,000 for scoreboard. I'd like to see that held until we actually have a master plan for Jefferson Park. Because why install something that we might tear out or relocate? And I could go on. The last thing. The last time I was here, I mentioned the building inspector is going to be paid through TIF. And I was contradicted. All salaries, every TIF district has salaries built into TIFs. I have 3 pages just from the TIF 13 plan, and it specifically even states anything from right-of-way and inspections and legals, anything that, just one line here.
Okay, we understand your point that
Well,
tips are
I'm saying
being used
it was-
for
Yeah,
for
I
salaries
should have
in some
highlighted
cases.
it, but
Sure.
you can have engineering, you can have community development, you can have the building inspector, legal fees, the city attorney. A portion of all those salaries are built into TIFs. And to me, I think that's half the reason cities want to keep TIFs, because otherwise they go on the levy. So, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Taylor. Anyone else wish to speak this evening? Seeing no one else, we'll move on to the first agenda item, which is the Health Department budget. And Nancy is here this evening to talk a little bit about her budgets.
Good evening, everybody. Do you have the budget review sheet that I gave you? It might help as we go through these because we do have a lot of grant programs in the budget, and it helps to distinguish, where they're from, what they're doing, and how they're covered. So we'll start right away with the first program, which is the Employee Safety Committee. And this program really manages the city safety program for employees. We maintain compliance with OSHA and with the Department of Safety and Professional Services. We provide employee training and conduct annual fit testing for respiratory care and for hearing screening. We investigate all of the employee injuries, and we conduct monthly safety meetings for DPW, parks, the police department, and City Hall. The program costs for next year remain relatively the same. Do you have any questions about this? The second grant or budget is the Sealer of Weights and Measures. And this is required by state statute for municipalities with populations over 5,000. And the services we provide are inspecting business devices, and it's for consumer protection to make sure that consumers get what they are paying for. We participate in their state surveys and investigations. Most recently, you'll have heard, and maybe you'll have seen it on the website, there's interest in credit card skimmers, and our sealer has gone out and inspected all of those devices to make sure that we don't have the skimmers. And we have also been called out to inspect businesses to make sure that they're safe and don't have the skimmers. The program costs for this program are about the same, and the program itself is covered by fees. The next,
Before we go on to that one,
Sure.
Mrs. Taylor had a question about us combining with Winnebago County, and we didn't do that. And I noticed in this morning's paper, there was an article about Nina, who did combine, has not been doing some of these inspections on some of their devices. And can you tell us a little bit why it's important that we do have someone doing that, and why we did decide that we wanted to stay independent, because we did feel that that was very important?
correct. We probably see over 400 or inspect over 400 devices a year. It's up about, I want to say, several percent inspections in comparison to last year. And Todd Drew is our sealer, and he goes and visits every gas pump and measures to make sure that you get what you pay for when you go to the gas pump. He visits farmers markets and retail food areas and makes sure that when you weigh something, you get what you pay for and the scales are correct. The businesses actually welcome this. We have really good businesses in Menasha. They want to give the consumer the best buy. But there's also issues where you have people coming in and putting credit card skimmers. This isn't the businesses that do this. This is, you know, people who are breaking the law in essence. And we have someone that's dedicated to doing that for all of our businesses.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions about sealer weights and measures?
And this
just real
program,
Sure, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Alderman Benner?
Yeah, one thing you did miss on with that city sealer is that also a lot of times their scales go the opposite direction, and it helps the businesses to make sure that they're not giving product away.
that's correct.
Yeah,
Yep,
so,
they usually welcome us coming in and making sure that things are the way they should be.
no, it's a good thing. It's important
It is.
that we do that for everybody. Thanks.
That program, by the way, is regulated by the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection for the state of Wisconsin, so we work closely with them. The next area in the budget is the Menasha Health Department, and basically, we are a level 3 health department. It's the highest level health department that you can achieve. We provide an array of services for our residents. Communicable disease control, public health nursing. We do home visits, consultations, referral and assistance, case management. We provide the school health services. We maintain a medical equipment alert list, and that may not sound, when I just say we maintain a list, it does require us to work with physician's office to determine if people have equipment in their homes that might, if there was an outage, a power outage, that there might need to be contingency plans made. So we work with both the consumer and we work with utilities to maintain that list. So both the utilities is aware and the consumer is aware. And they can take measures to make plans if there's an outage. We do community health assessment and improvement planning, and we do that with adjacent health departments and with health systems like Theta Care and Aurora, Affinity. We do health education to community groups. We do safe passenger checks for car seats. So people can come to our health department, make appointments, and have a public health nurse actually help them to make sure that their child has a safe car seat and knows how to use it correctly. We do our CPR and first aid training for our city and our school districts. We convene the Board of Health, the Medical Advisory Board, and the Committee on Aging meetings. And just a note that costs are kept down with our health department because we're able to share in the costs with the school districts. So 50% is on the levy and 50% is covered by the school district. So this works out well, and we're able to provide very excellent services for our community. And any questions about the health department?
Alderman Keehan has a question.
Thank you. Could you talk a little bit about our designation as a Level 3 health department and why that's so important and part
A
of?
Level 3 health department means that you meet requirements that the state of Wisconsin sets out. Every several years, they come in and they actually do an audit of all of our programs, and we have to have certain programs in place like communicable disease control, like immunization, like public health nursing services. We have to have those in place, environmental health. And it's important because the state of Wisconsin does provide grants for us, and they want to make sure that that funding that is from our taxpayers is put to good use and used appropriately. So they go through our every program with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that we're meeting that and controlling communicable disease especially.
So the level of service and I guess the variety of services that we provide as compared to other municipalities?
There's level 2 health departments and level 1 health departments. We provide the public health nursing services, they must provide also, but we have to go above and beyond that and provide additional services and prove the quality of the service and the extent of the service is comparable to a level 3 health department.
Excellent, thank you.
Alderman Collier.
Just for information, what level would Winnebago County be at?
I believe they're at level 3.
3? Okay. And they probably get grants like we also.
They do. We write for our grants for our jurisdiction, so the funds that we apply for go right to Menasha.
Thank
They're
you.
not dispersed throughout the county. And we work really closely with them to make sure that they serve people in their jurisdiction and we serve people in our jurisdiction. So your grants go to work for you right here.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is the Environmental Health Program. And we actually serve as an agent for Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, Consumer Protection for retail food, swimming pools, hotels, rooming houses, and school service, food service inspections. We're also agent of the state for safety and professional services for mobile home parks inspections, and an agent for the Department of Natural Resources for asbestos and commercial building demolition compliance inspection. Our services include responding to human health hazard complaints such as lead and asbestos, water, indoor and outdoor air quality, vector control, odor, rabies control. We offer food safety and other environmental health training. We work closely with code enforcement, building inspection, the police department, and we address property complaints upon request. We consult with community development related to city-acquired redevelopment sites to assure that there's compliance with lead and asbestos hazards, any kind of hazardous waste and demolition requirements. We were at a meeting this morning, just that. The funding for this is licensure fees, our DNR contract, and some levy. Again, this is a program that's required of a level 3 health department, and it's of great benefit to the city of Menasha. The environmental health registered sanitarian is required to maintain relevant certifications in lead and asbestos. So it does save money when you don't have to go out and contract for those services. They're here in the city for you. The program costs in comparison to last year are relatively the same. Personnel is slightly higher due to our increases. Any questions about environmental health? Okay. Next one is Health Screening 60 Plus, and this is a grant that provides actually for a public health nurse, registered nurse with a bachelor's degree, to coordinate all health screenings, health education, and health monitoring of older adults. And they do that in collaboration with service individuals in the community that serve at the senior center. And we have a grant from Winnebago County that funds this at 100%. So it complements the senior center. The program costs this year are slightly lower because we had a personnel change. The public health nurse that served the senior center moved to Oregon, but we were able to replace that position. And I'm happy to say we had 21 applicants for that part-time position, and we were able to get a successful hire. So should be starting shortly. Any questions about that grant program? Okay, the next program is prevention. It's a grant-funded program. It's funded by the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services, and it covers the program 100%, grant does. This basically is taking on community health assessment, and as I explained a little bit earlier, we do that with our health systems and adjacent health departments. We collaborate to address community health needs. I don't know if anybody was able to attend the Corny Community Walk, but that was one of the events that they were sponsoring. And what it does is it actually promotes physical activity and nutrition by utilizing our beautiful scenic waterfront. We set up a trail, and there were over 100 people that participated. We had great cooperation from the police department, from the fire department, from local businesses, and from the school district. It's just been a really great collaboration. Any questions about that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Alderman Zelensky?
Yes, I guess on prevention, how does the health department work with like the fire and the police department to make sure they're actively pursuing
Yes.
better fitness?
So we have a lead, an individual that's lead staff on this. We get the funding in from the state, and they work with the police department. They had their, I think they call them scouts, or their auxiliary patrol that walked with the groups throughout the trails. So they were very instrumental in, helping us to have a safe community walk. The fire department assisted with their staff and roasted corn for us and Corny Community Walk. And we had area businesses that contributed water and food, and were there for registration. It's a great family event, and we tried this year to make it more intergenerational, so we're hoping that continues. The next program, that's the 0907, that's radon, and basically it's radon awareness and testing. We provide radon kits and provide information to residents, as well as real estate and builders. This program will not be funded in 2017. It's a smaller grant program, and about every other year they seem to fund this program in local communities. The 0908 is the school health aides. Under the direction of our public health nurses, we have school health aides that accompany them and work with them in the schools. They distribute medications. They're trained to respond to first aid events. This is fully funded by the Menasha Joint School District under a contract. The program costs, you'll note, are just slightly higher due to personnel costs next year, but they are instrumental in really helping the kids through their school day that may encounter events or have health issues that need to be addressed during the school hours. 0909 is a dental fluoride varnish program, and along with our sealant program is designed to prevent tooth decay. And a little known fact is that tooth decay is the most common chronic disease of childhood. And I'm very proud to say that the two hygienists that work on this program work very hard. The decay rate has really been driven down from around 18% to about 10.5% this past year, which is really bringing down the decay rate. But it's really working with families and with providers and with the children to make sure that they have screenings, fluorides, and dental sealants. This particular program is funded by a grant through the United Way, and we received that grant through something called the Menasha Dental Clinic. And we also support this with Medicaid reimbursement. So this particular program doesn't cost taxpayer anything, and it's open to all members of our community, all children in our community. The next one, any questions about that? No? Next one is the lead poisoning prevention program. This is also a grant-funded program. It's a quite small grant, but what we do is look at reports that we receive from the State Lab of Hygiene, and we evaluate those to see if the children have had high lead testing, and then if that's the case, we offer information and an evaluation of their surroundings, for example, their homes, their grandparents' homes, schools or Head Starts, or areas where they may be frequenting, to see if there's any sources of lead that needs to be removed. The program costs next year will remain about the same, and again, it's 100% funded by grants. The immunization program is a grant-funded program to make sure that we have infants that reach 24 months of age and are up to date on their recommended vaccine. And we notify families of those vaccines. We track the vaccine rates. We offer clinics for the recommended vaccines. We provide after-hours clinics for families, and we offer both the adult and child flu clinics. This, again, 100% funded by the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services. The program costs this year were lower due to staffing changes, and you're going to see it's lower in the 2017 budget, but we'll be looking to see if the person that we've hired on is going to take any benefits, so it may change slightly. Any questions about immunization? Next one is Maternal and Child Health Program. This is also a grant-funded program, 100%. And this program really works to strengthen mothers and children, and provides technical assistance to assist mothers and families. This past year and this coming year, the state has given us the opportunity to work with them on advancing a couple objectives, and one of these objectives is to make sure we have breastfeeding friendly work sites, and we're looking at child care centers. We've got 3 fully certified child care centers in Menasha that have gone through 10 steps to become breastfeeding friendly, and we'll be looking at additional sites who have indicated interest next year. Again, 100% funded, and again, the costs are slightly less based on personnel. Any questions? 0916 is our dental sealant program, and this is also a really great program, and Menasha has had this in place for several years now, and I think this is, along with the dental varnish program, is complementary and has really made a difference in the decay rate for the children. Every child, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8th grades are eligible for this program in the Menasha School District. There's dental screening, sealant applications, oral health education, fluoride varnish application, and maintaining a dental referral network. It's funded by the Department of Health Services through a grant that they, Children's Health Alliance of Wisconsin, administers. And we also support this with Medicaid reimbursement. Any questions about this program? Again, fully funded by those 2 sources. The next program, 0917 Quality Improvement, was not in place last year. I think there were some activities on that budget, and it'll probably not show up next year. Bioterrorism program, 0918. It supports emergency preparedness exercises. And this, quite frankly, is a learning opportunity not just for us as city employees that respond to emergencies, because we use the work here to do preparedness exercises, but the Mass Flu Clinic, for example, that we have, draws people from other jurisdictions to observe and learn. So we have people observing what we do so that they can bring it back to their communities. And we coordinate, conduct, and participate in training with our emergency management, our emergency medical services, and emergency responders. That vaccine clinic is great. Again, 100% funded by our bioterrorism program, is funded by the Department of Health Services. The next one is the 24/7, and this provides staff with telephone and specialized equipment so that we have 24/7 communication. Again, that is funded by grants. The costs are slightly higher because we're upgrading to smartphones this next year. Senior Center. The Menasha Senior Center is fully accredited by the National Institute of Senior Centers. This is an amazing feat. It isn't easy to achieve accreditation. Again, that requires people to really look through all of your policies and programs and make sure that they're in alignment with national standards. The Menasha Senior Center really welcomes anybody 55 and older. So it's not just for older seniors, but younger seniors too. And this is where, of course, we have our wellness person, the public health nurse. And we also facilitate counseling services, health and financing, and other personal services. The way this is funded is basically about 27% county grant, a little bit of rental fees, and about 72% tax levy. We're working hard to think of ways that we can help the program to become more self-sufficient. We did have slightly higher costs due to increases in contract management costs, just slightly higher though. That's it. Any questions?
Alderman Collier?
First, I want to say, I understand Goodwill is doing something down the road, and it's not too often. I will agree with Mrs. DeBelle, but I would look at that down the future. I like what you guys are doing, and I'm all for your budget.
Thank
I
you.
hate to say down the road, X years, it might come to us versus the county because of what's happening in the world, but I love you guys and keep going strong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Zelensky?
So on that topic, have you guys looked into what's going to be happening with, I guess, the future Goodwill coming up? And do you guys hope to work with them in some aspects, or how do you presume to go about that?
At the Committee on Aging meetings, we have addressed this, and we have agreed that we would like to sit down with the Goodwill. We're certainly looking at the niches that this senior center provides and what kinds of things other people may provide, such as respite care for people with failing memories and things like that. But we haven't sat down with them yet. We would like to do that. The mayor has also talked with folks about doing those things, and that is a good suggestion that we will pursue.
Alderman Crabtree?
I just want to kind of build off that. As far as being a teacher in Menasha, I want to show our appreciation for not only your efforts, but the efforts of both the Menasha School District and the Health Department getting together, paying 50/50 or full payment on the Menasha Joint School District, and to make sure we continue to take care of our future.
It's a wonderful collaboration, and it makes it affordable for the community. And it gives the children a chance to really get a good head start in school, and we make sure that they're healthy and ready to learn. So I really appreciate that too.
Absolutely, and in addition to that, attendance is key to success for our kids. Attendance is up, has been for the last 2 years, and I'm on kind of an order not to say too much, but keep an eye on the paper, and I think you'll be impressed with what you see with test scores. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention one of our newer partnerships this year with the vision, hearing, and oral health screening. We actually have a partnership with the Lions Club, and they brought in state-of-the-art equipment that's just being rolled out and used in other communities. And it's fast, it's accurate, and it's helped us to become really responsive. It's very efficient, so we are hopefully working with really great partners to help move the health of our children and families forward.
I was just checking to make sure we had all the questions answered, if we had from the public as well. Any other questions for Director McKinney? Otherwise, we'll move on to the Community Development Department, and then we'll talk with everyone about the capital improvement plan, as well as any ideas for changes that you guys might have in the budget tonight. Director Buck, you're up.
Thank you. And I do not have a great spreadsheet. I wish I would have put one together, because it seemed to work really well. But this is, if you can hear me, this is, so my first budget. I've been here less than 3 months yet, so I'll do my best to answer any questions. I had thought the best way, by looking at what you had done in previous years, you kind of went through each section on the sort of the table of contents. So the first section we would be going over is the inspector, which is 100-0301. And as you're all aware, the city has budgeted, has been attempting to bring a building inspector and housing specialist in as a municipal employee, I think last year and obviously this year. So the position is a dual position. It would be both the residential building plan reviewer and inspector, as well as the operator of our housing programs. So it takes the place of two sort of long-standing contractual positions that we have right now. We use a contractor to do our residential and commercial would stay contracted, and we also contract with another individual to do our run our revolving loan programs and our housing rehabilitation programs. So it's kind of, again, sort of the two phases. The building inspector does everything from plan review, customer service, code compliance, record keeping, permit issuance, and that type of work. The housing specialist is a little bit different in that they're going to do management of the community development block grant funds and home funds, which are both federal fund sources. They do all the reporting, they do the screening of applicants, the promotion of the program, bid document creation, loans, and a whole variety of items all the way through follow-through. So they're kind of different but yet related type positions. We have gone through screening and interview process, and hopefully we will have a new person on very soon. So again, it is a new position. We will be making up the cost for this position by reducing the cost in our contract services, excuse me, as well as reducing our management costs in the community development account for our contract services for our housing specialists. There'll be a little bit of overlap. Some of the things you'll see in the budget that look a little bit outstanding deal with the new implementation of this program. So obviously this person is going to need a vehicle. That's something that needs to be budgeted for. They need phone, software to do permits and track permits and complaints, licensing. They need code books. They have to have continued education, which is required for them to keep the certifications. So those fees are built into this budget, or those costs, but they're truly offset by the reduction in the other areas. So I'm very hopeful that we get somebody on board soon and get that program running. As somebody in the audience had mentioned, the types of services that we're going to get from an in-house inspector and housing specialist, I anticipate are going to be far superior, especially in the customer service and follow-up aspects. than we would with any kind of contractual service who's not, tied to or married to the community like our own employee is going to be. And I guess I can just take questions after each one.
Exactly. Alderman Benner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know you're new here, so.
Yep. Well, fire, I'll do my best.
Well, the disparity under the management line for the inspector, could you touch a little bit more on the disparity there and the big fluctuation in dollars that we've had over the last couple of years?
Sure. Well, the budgeted 130,000 versus the 87,000 to date. Is that what you're getting at? And then the
Well, we
60,000 for the future?
Year-end projection of 130 and then 60,000 requested for next year.
Right. That is because we're going to be removing the residential component out of there. So the 70,000 of that contract, basically contracted services management cost, that goes to our inspection services that we contract through Safe Bill right now. They'll no longer be providing office hours. We'll have our in-house inspector, and they won't have to do the housing portion for our building permits or our code compliance or inspections. So that's why you see that big, huge drop in there. But you'll notice the increase when you go to wages, health, dental,
Right.
above. So those kind of compensate for each other.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions about the building inspection area? Okay, we'll move on to the Valley Transit and Dial-A-Ride.
All right, Valley Transit and Dial-A-Ride, that is our busing service and also our paratransit service throughout the community. I guess the projections and the costs, they come directly from Valley Transit themselves. Send that to the city, and we pay a portion. And this is one section that I'm not going to have a lot of detail on that. I know Peggy does. But it's a service that the city provides, to our citizens through cooperation with Valley Transit every year.
Did
So do you want me to tell you about some of the numbers?
Well, yeah, you might want to tell us that we're not really paying
Right,
$186,000
so
towards
so the
this.
budget number did go up for 2017. However, the grants and aids that come along with it went up as well. So I could just maybe share with you the net cost. I'll just start with 2014. We'll go with 3 years. Net cost in 2014 was 37, well, let me go back one more year, because from 2010 to 2014, it was right around 45 to 48,000, the net cost to the city. So there's accompanying revenues that go with these expenditures. 2014, it was just under 38,000. 2015, it was just under 39,000. 2016, it's estimated to come in at 40,000 net cost to the city, and then in 2017, that would be 44,000 net cost to the city.
I was trying to quickly find that section in the revenues, and I'm not seeing it here. Do you know where it is, Peggy?
It's called Mass Transit, and I believe it is on page 244.
There it is.
The account number is 100-0000-48103.
It's like 5 up from the bottom.
Correct.
So those two are paired together. Any questions about Valley Transit or Dial-A-Ride? Okay, the next one is the community development budget.
Correct. This is sort of our, what I call the meat of our budget. I guess it's our big one. The community development department is kind of a catch-all department. We do a lot of different things. We implement the brand positioning statement. We have a lot of different planning documents, our comprehensive plan being the foremost. We do general land use planning, all zoning administration, building code administration, redevelopment, retention, business retention, growth management, bicycle and pedestrian planning, economic development, housing and business loan programs, grant administration, multiple things for historic preservation, TIF development administration, land records management. We're primary staff liaison to multiple local and regional development policy groups, but also the Plan Commission, the Housing Authority, Board of Appeals, Landmarks Commission, the Redevelopment Authority, both the Calumet and Winnebago County TIF Joint Review Boards, and some other regional organizations, as well as massive coordination with Public Works, Attorney's Office, and multiple departments. So you'll see there in our budget, it's a slight overall increase, but when you take a look at the line items, it's actually a little bit of a decrease. One big item that you see in here that I guess I want to point out is the 2102, which is engineering, which is a request for $25,000, and that is for a downtown visioning plan. And that downtown visioning would encompass both the South Shore, so the Gilbert sites, our Donnelly site, all the way down to Washington Street. We would take the North Shore as well, and obviously, well, not obviously, but we would bring that down Water Street to get it to the Trestle Trail. One thing that becomes very difficult, we have a lot of redevelopment sites down here, great opportunity sites, but it's very difficult to talk to developers who are coming in saying, well, I'm interested in doing this. To have them purchase a lot of services and put together a lot of plans only to either get to the RDA or the Plan Commission or the Common Council to say, no, that's not our vision for this area, it's very hindering, and many developers aren't interested in going forward with that. Like I said, I've been here for a short time, and there currently does not seem to be a very common vision for what we want to see for a comprehensive development downtown, what uses we want where, what densities. I know this wouldn't be a plan that would have engineering work in it, but it would give a vision for the downtown, where we'd like to see things go, that we can then use to market the sites, to use to also address developer concerns. So if we have somebody coming in saying, they're interested in doing X use and it doesn't meet our plan, they don't have to come through and do all that work. It's also going to encourage developers who are interested in doing certain type of services that we can target, or that might just see the plan and come, to know that what they want to do fits in line with the community's vision. Now, the vision plan obviously is going to have a lot of public input and a lot of open meetings, not just with the public, but with business owners downtown, property owners, with elected officials, councils, and general public. But that's one big item that's in here. It's one big planning document, but it's extremely important. Also, you'll see the management funds that were at $22,000, projected for $22,000 this year. That has dropped down to $8,000, and primarily because a lot of those funds are right now funding our housing specialist. So that would be pulled out. That's now being absorbed again into the inspection. But we do have two line items there under that $8,000. One is for the Habitat for Humanity Rock the Block program, which has been very successful in not only Oshkosh, but Menasha, Neenah. We haven't done any in Oshkosh, but we would be doing another one of those next year, and the $5,000 would be to fund that. There's $3,000 in there for other professional work associated with CSMs, easements, legal descriptions, and that type of thing. There's some money in marketing. Part of that money, $9,250, would go to the Fox Cities Regional Partnership, and that would also be coupled with some money that you'll see in TID 6, a little over $8,000 in TID 6 to match our population for the regional partnership. There is some funds put in here for in-house infotech services at $12,000. Now you're going to see some of that is because of our new Meritage software that we're going to need for inspection, but also for our GIS system and our market drive systems. The rest of the funds are all pretty small. Some of them are related to training, also professional organizations and conferences. Those can kind of break them down into the three sections. So one is dues, memberships, and licenses. I'm a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. Both the planners on our staff are APA members, which is American Planning Association members. We belong to several historic preservation organizations. Fox, Wisconsin Heritage Parkway is another group that we belong to. And there's numerous others. And those kind of go with our memberships and our dues. There is continued education that is very important for a department that does so many different items. To give you an example, brownfield training with the EPA or the DNR. Laws and regulations change every year with the state and federal government. Staff really needs to keep up with those. They do, most of those agencies will do trainings and conferences, usually day ones or 2-day conferences. Those are incredibly important for us to go to. Other continuing education type training that's important. I heard earlier a BID or a Main Street program. Those are very successful programs, and if it is an initiative that we're interested in going forward with, that would be some type of a conference or training program that we'd like to go to as well. There's a lot of different land use and zoning law changes. Those things, we need to stay up to date with that, staff. So you get a lot of conferences and continue education that way. Training is really, that's divided between 3 staff people and soon to be 4 staff people. A lot of that is on our software, our GIS software, also our other software systems that we use. Those get updated, those get changed. So staff needs to stay up to date with that. Other than that, this budget has really stayed pretty steady from the last one. One thing you'll see in probably all of my sections that I go through, I think because I was so green, I didn't really add too much or change too much around in here. Kept it pretty static. I kind of have to relate on some of the previous years and the costs and expenses that we've had. And so I've done a lot of that in here too. But, so any questions on sort of the community development section?
Alderman Collier?
I see that we have no money for acquiring land or any acquisitions. You budgeted 0.
Correct.
You don't see no opportunities coming up or
Well,
no wish list?
There's a little bit of funds located in a different section, but not a drastic amount.
Okay.
There could very well be opportunities to put it in. I have not.
And historically, we don't budget nothing.
We haven't acquired land except for through TIFs in the past, in most cases. So we do have some money, as Director Buck said, within the RDA budget. And it was specifically looking at if another parcel like the parcel down on Chute Street would come up, that would be very small cost.
Or like the gas station?
Yep, and that
Okay.
one as well as what the 2 properties would be in there for.
Okay, thank you on that. And then on rehab in the city, inner city, you had a small amount of money there.
For the rehab, you're going to see that under the housing rehabilitation section, which is our revolving loan funds, and then also within TID 10, assuming increment is available, we've budgeted $50,000.
And I understand how important that is to get a city moving again and restocking its inner cities. And down the road, I'll be begging and crying and doing anything I can to find an extra $50,000 out of this budget. If I have to cut something from the fire or whoever, I'm gonna go after them. But this is very important to me, so I hope we find a way to loosen up some more money for you guys. Thank you.
Alderman Zelinski?
For our regional partnership, like we had someone mention from the gallery, I see Appleton, she mentioned that they cut back 50%, and I saw that elsewhere on the internet, but why aren't we dialing back on this? Why don't we put some more of it on our shoulders instead of paying someone else to do it?
Right, well, the regional partnerships, since I've been here for the last couple months, I've gone on 3 site visits. I've seen a half a dozen site locators who are individuals who locate businesses, so they kind of do preemptive flybys through communities to find sites. I've also been involved with their talent upload project a little bit, and that's just in the couple months that I've been here. Appleton, I can't tell you why they are not funding it at basically $1 per resident. But I've seen great value, and I think Manny Vasquez came here not too long ago, and kind of reported on what they've been doing. I see great value in that, and for Menasha to be part of a regional partnership is very important. We're kind of wedged in between, Appleton and Neenah, and from a regional standpoint, all of the communities themselves, including Menasha, all have something as a draw. But to try to do that marketing on our own without that coordination, I think would be less advantageous. There are a lot of other communities that are in the regional partnership right now. Winnebago and Calumet County, Outagamie County, Neenah, Kaukauna, Little Chute, Brillion. Then there's some smaller ones. Downtown Appleton is part of the group. Also Appleton Airport as well. City of Appleton to a smaller degree. We got a lot of towns, Greenville, Menasha, I'm assuming Fox Crossing, Buchanan, Grand Chute, Ortonville, and Kimberly. These are all part of this partnership, and really the big thing is that they're promoting the valley as one entity. And to give you an example, with the talent recruitment, when they bring the students in, which is very important because they're the future employees, who the employers want to know are here. It's very important because they can show Menasha, once you want to live here, even though the industries may be in a neighboring community.
Faith Technologies is a big part of talent upload, so they see the value in it as well.
Have we seen anything directly from this regional partnership that's impacted this a substantial amount to keep giving them this amount of money?
We did work quite strongly with Simply Incredible Foods with them. We've gotten a lot of data from them. They have a lot of databases that we can use as well. I think the other thing that's important to think about though is, and I think Manny mentioned this, is that the national players and the people that are looking from the outside in, they even feel that the Fox City Regional Partnership is too small of an area to be marketing. And they, this year, then combined with the Green Bay partnership, our partnership, and Oshkosh. Did Oshkosh come in? Or just Fond du Lac? Oshkosh and Fond du Lac as well. So when you're looking at attracting talent or attracting businesses, they're looking at a much broader region. If we tried to do this on our own, we wouldn't even be a blip on the screen for most of these people even thinking about looking, nor would we be able to attract them to come looking here. Oh, I'm sorry. I just looked up and I didn't see anyone.
That's okay. I didn't have it on. You touched on some of what was there, but several years ago, we did try to create some marketing dollars for community development. It started out as a full-time person with a part-time person. It kept getting hacked and cut down to all of a sudden it just got to a point where you'd never be able to get anybody to do with what we could actually afford to put dollars to. And one of the reasons that I leaned towards the Fox Valley Regional Partnership myself was the fact we just don't have enough staff and we don't have enough resources to do this ourselves. And at least we have somebody out there with a voice that's saying that we're part of a partnership for the Fox Valley that gets our name out there, gets us on somebody's radar, potentially be a place to locate to. And unless we could invest probably 5 times this amount of money to have somebody ourselves, and we may still not even have that impact, this is the best we can do. And I'm not even saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that this is what we can do. So I think it's important that we do it. Thank you.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what they've been doing for potential businesses coming in and how they work with us to look for sites and help market some of our sites as well?
Sure. Well, I guess I can start on the first part. They do quite a bit of, I don't know what you say, if it's site research. So they'll get a business, an existing business or a future business wants to locate here, and they'll have certain site parameters that they're looking for, any such a size property, I need to be so close to the highway or so close to a rail line, or building has to have so many dock doors, so much ceiling height, whatever the details are. The regional partnership will contact the city. They have a lot of information in their databases already about a lot of our commercial sites, and if those fit the criteria, and they'll contact the city and set up phone conversations or one-on-one conversations to kind of get those sites known out there. A lot of times, the development community will contact the regional partnership first before they'll contact individual municipalities, and that's very common. And also, they don't only just take that from people calling in, they will actually go out and they know somebody who's in need of expanding or in need of a specific service, and they know that either a site or a building is available in a community. They'll market that for us, as well as marketing services. So if you're a good example would be Simply Incredible Food needs some freeze-dried wrapping. They'll find other businesses in the community that can do that for them at a reduced rate, so they're not sending it, let's say, to Illinois or Michigan, which of course drives their costs up for shipping back and forth. So they help coordinate that as well. I don't know if that's what you're getting at.
Exactly.
So they do provide a lot of services that aren't brick and mortar type end uses, although they may end up being that, with cost savings to businesses or with relocations or locations.
So we'll move on to urban redevelopment then.
Urban redevelopment, this is basically a fund that's used for electric, water, sewer, and stormwater payments on city-owned lots. We own some lots, Lake Park Road, Racine Street, Midway. You can see the numbers are very small, but these are really just to address those fees that come in on our property. Or those bills, I should say.
Then we're going to move into the 200 number accounts, and on page, what is this, 159 is the facade improvement program.
Yeah, page 159, and this one is unfortunately labeled housing rehab program, and it's not really a housing rehab program. It's the Landmarks Commission led a facade improvement program. So Landmarks Commission right now has 2 facade improvement programs, and you've probably seen the impact. I've seen the impact drastically on the north side of Main Street with just those facade changes at the weather vane. And I'm going to be really lacking on some of the names, but the coffee shop, Your Daily Grind, also utilize some of those. But they really run 2 different programs. One is a grant program, and it's a matching grant program up to $2,500. So if you're investing in your facade improvement, they can grant a matching grant. So it's a stimulus to try to improve some of the historic buildings, which oftentimes require a little bit more money to rehab appropriately. And they have to go through the Landmarks Commission and get approval, of their design, of materials they're using, make sure it's historically accurate. There's another program that they don't encourage as much, but it's a loan program, and that's up to $10,000, deferred payment loan. There is an interest rate that goes along with that, and that for the same type of program, to do a facade improvement, but it is it's an administered loan so that they would receive those funds back. That's a lot more money. They don't have a lot of money. As you can see, they're only requesting $10,000 here in the 2017 budget. But I can almost guarantee you 4 grants, if we keep seeing influx of small business on our Main Street, easily be used. And it goes a long way to really improve the look of downtown and the preservation of the buildings. If you know anything about buildings, deferred maintenance is the worst. It just builds upon itself. So that's what these funds are.
So before we go further, the account numbers that don't start in 100 are not tax levy accounts. So this 10,000, if you would change that, doesn't change the levy. These are revolving funds. So if you wanted to add to that, I don't know exactly where we've added, but we've done that in the past. We put levy money into this fund. You'd have to do that differently, but what's in here does not impact the levy at the moment. Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've often questioned why this was downtown or only, because we have some businesses that are out in other parts of the city that, especially new businesses that start up and they have a facade that's, could definitely use some help and would definitely help that neighborhood, and I think it would help bring complaints down in that neighborhood about particular business being there, you know, especially if it's a tavern or something like that. How come we don't have something that could help folks like that out, or is there a chance that this could be spread out a little bit more or open to more folks? Because, you know, downtown, and I understand the necessity to strengthen our downtown and improvements of that, but some of our outlying neighborhoods to me are as important.
Sure. And I might have to punt a little bit on this one, but this is really designed to offset the cost of historic rehab because it is so much more expensive. So when you have a historic building, and you could have some of those in some of the outlying areas as well, especially some of the neighborhood commercial nodes. But I think because Landmarks was administering this program, that needed to be in a historic district. So you sort of have your historic districts downtown.
So it's not just a historic building, but it's in a historic district as well?
Correct.
And that's really what this is focused on?
Right, and the way the program is processed and administered is all through the Landmarks Commission. So it kind of relates all back to that, which then again relates to the geography of downtown. Not that it couldn't go further out. I mean, you could. We just have to administer it a little bit different, because I don't know if you need Landmarks to be, doing facade review for some of the other buildings that could use improvement, for sure.
Is that some dialogue we could open in the next year or so and find out if there's something we can do, if we can put this out through the community a little bit more than just downtown? Because I think there's some places that would really benefit from this, and I think it's a good thing, and might even be worth bumping some dollars up in the future if we can do that. Thank you.
So I think two things with that. One, I believe these were CDBG funds that were dedicated specifically towards historic preservation originally. And I think that there's a very teeny tiny balance in this fund as well.
Very small.
Do you have any idea, Peggy? I mean, it's tens of thousands of dollars. It's nothing.
I want to say, and don't hold me to this, around 19.
Yeah, so
Plus
it's a
or minus
pretty
a little
small
change.
balance. So I think your idea is a good one. It just would be, how would we fund that other program if we were to expand it? So,
With downtown, we're going to expand it by that one tip by a half a mile. Would this help us find ways to spend money in that half mile through money like this or something else in our plan?
Yes, and that's good. And we'll I think it's TIF 10. When we get to that, I'll be talking about it more. But we do have allocated in TIF 10 $40,000 for the same type of program over on the western side of the downtown corridor, the Main Street corridor. We have that mixed in with also with housing rehab to kind of address some of the things on Water Street and on Diego Street, which would really logically be our next
Thank you.
area.
The fund balance in that account is $22,700 at the end of 2015.
We have a couple applications in.
you're pretty close, it looks like.
Yeah.
Anybody else on the facade program? Why don't we skip down to the housing rehab program on page 168, and then we'll kind of do the TIFs as a group.
Sure. Okay, the housing rehab program. This is truly a housing rehab program, and this fund is sort of it is all revolving loan funds. I believe it was started and seeded using community development block grant funds through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, as well as home funds. Those are two funding sources. We're not an entitlement community, so we get ours through the state. They gave us to it quite a while ago, and we established two revolving loan fund programs. They're slightly separated. because home funds, when you go into a project, you have to bring the entire structure up to code, from basement to roof. The block grant funds, you can be a little bit more selective. I mean, you have to address health issues, but they can be a little bit more selective on what programs that you fund. And it is revolving loan, so the money goes out, it's a zero interest deferred payment, so you pay it back when you either sell the home or choose to pay it back or pass on. And then those come back into the revolving loan fund, so it's variable by year how much we receive back. But what people do is they basically apply in two ways. One, if they need assistance to do rehab on their property, that can be interior or exterior, we find out which program they fit best in, and we would generate the loan documents through that with the property owner. The second way is emergency assistance. So if you have a roof that's failing or a heater that went out and you have no money, these funds are used to kind of bridge the gap and be able to get your house habitable again. It's all for single-family residential, all for owner-occupied, but that's sort of our housing rehab program that we have right now. The big thing with this one that's really important to know is you have to be income qualified. So you would have to make a certain degree less than the median income for the county. And so it's not a program that's eligible to everybody. It's only eligible really to those in the greatest need, typically elderly and very low income. And this is one of the items that the new housing specialists would run this program. There's substantial work in reporting back to the state, and qualifying candidates, managing contractors. You become a project manager on every project. You do that for the resident. Coordinate a lot with health department, Todd Drew, for those issues. But
So do you want to talk about the other potential as well with the housing program, even though the money's in one of the TIF districts, but how that would work, just so everyone understands that David isn't going to decide how we're going to expend that. A program would come forward and then we would
Right.
talk about that as well.
yeah, and we have, if increment is available, 50,000 coming out of TID 10 to be used within a half-mile radius, which is quite a good distance. And those programs those housing programs would be run kind of similar to these revolving loan programs. There's some differences, and obviously I'd work with the housing specialist and we would bring those programs through for approval, for the process. But how I see those programs working is a fixed application date. So whatever that would be, you apply for your loan program in February, let's say. Housing Authority would go through and determine, how those funds should be spent, where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. Probably leave a little contingency for emergency services. And then the housing coordinator or the housing specialist would administer those programs very similar to how we administer the block grant programs. There's already a system in place. We would not have to report to the state or the Department of Housing and Urban Development, report to the council instead. But these funds would not have to be income qualified. So certain things you could do specific site targeting. Go to a problem property and say, hey, we need you to fix your porch. We have some funds available through a loan program. Are you interested in really doing encouragement? Instead of a stick, give them a carrot, try to improve their property. You can do area targeting. So if there's a block, there's a lot of value with going with 2 or 3 properties in a problem block and try to get some redevelopment spurred that way. Typically, if neighbors see 2 or 3 neighbors painting their house, the next year you'll see 1 or 2 neighbors more painting their house. And it's sort of a domino effect. At least that's the concept that you're hoping for. So you can do targeted area improvements, or it can be scattered site throughout the community depending on application. So that's kind of how I'm envisioning these programs going. There's a lot of different programs you can do. Something as simple as a painting program, help you pay for your paint, all the way up to a conversion program where we would give you down payment assistance if you convert a home from a multi or a 2-family to a single. first-time homebuyer assistance. There's a plethora of programs out there, and we would have to bring those through and weed those down. When we start, I anticipate probably only maybe 2 or 3 different programs to be managing, see how those work, see how far our money goes, assuming we have money in the TIF to do that, and then expand upon it or contract upon it, depending on what we need to do. I mean, it's going to be a new program starting. I've worked with these programs in both Oshkosh and Green Bay. They do considerable amount of improvements, and they really have a big impact.
Do you want to talk about how both these programs probably would work in tandem with code enforcement?
For sure, yeah. Well, that is one of our biggest challenges that we have with code enforcement is, and every community has it, when you go out and you issue orders onto a property owner who does not have the resources to do the work, it becomes very problematic at that point. They need $10,000 worth of work, they just don't have the money. They can't get the loan, they can't get a grant to do the work. So you can issue them citations. All that really does is pull money out of their funds that they could otherwise use to do the work. So you end up, it becomes a vicious circle. By being able to have the carrot or some grant funds or some loan funds, however those come out, and I almost consider a zero interest deferred payment loan as almost a grant. You're not paying for it until you sell the property, although the money comes back to us. That is a good way that some of the code enforcement issues can actually be accomplished very less painfully and frankly a lot less negative impact on some of our residents.
Does anyone have questions about any of the housing program potentials or current? Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You talked about folks that struggle with being able to come up with the money to do it, and possibly they could also have bad credit, and it would be the fact that this would be tied to the sale of their home, as long as they're not on the wrong side of their loan, for their home, does that make it, would they still be able to get the loan to do the repairs?
Potentially. The housing specialist would have to basically vet their finances. They'd have to provide their financial information to us. If they have a very bad track record of loan repayment or default, they probably, it would be, I guess, up to the housing authority, really was my thought, have them do the approvals. But they probably would not qualify necessarily for those loans. They'd be too much of a risk. But we would tie that loan to their mortgage, so we would have to be paid before they could sell their home or refinance their home for that matter. And that's very typical. So how that would work, but it would really be up to the housing specialist and the housing authority to determine if this would be too great of a risk, to fund. And it depends also on the cost. I mean, if you're looking to borrow a very small amount of money to paint your house, and you're a little bit more of a credit risk, that's going to be less, I think, scary to pay for. But I mean, if you're doing a great amount of work on your home and you're financially unstable or you're underwater, I would not anticipate funding those projects. I mean, we have to be sensible about it as well. These monies are supposed to come back to us so we can reuse them again in future years. Ideally, this would be a fund that could be self-sustaining in the long run.
Okay, so my concern then is that if we have a blighted property, one that has the problems, we've identified it, and we've approached the folks with the ability to potentially do this loan, make the repairs, fix our home up, and if we don't get there, that this happens, what do we do at that point? We still have a blighted home in a neighborhood and neighbors that don't necessarily deserve to have this home within their neighborhood, bringing their property values down. Right. And to do nothing is nothing.
Well, we go through our standard enforcement action, which is, unfortunately, all we can really do is cite them, take them to court, have the court issue orders. In some cases, it becomes very difficult to get compliance. But what we find a lot of times is somebody who has substantial amount of equity in their home, may not be able to get a loan, would like to do the work, just needs a little bit of help.
Well, that's what you hope for.
And
that-
also-
and that you can do that and help them down the right path and do all those things. And
Also, people that don't have the wherewithal to hire contractors, especially elderly or disabled, they may not have the ability to even just coordinate the rehab themselves, and that's where the housing specialists can come in and help with that.
right, and I'm assuming we'll have a list of qualified contractors that can help them out, and things like that. I assume we're going to qualify contractors.
Well, we currently have a list of qualified
Yeah,
contractors. Yeah.
okay.
I mean, that can shrink and grow, but, yeah.
Okay, and I have concerns with,
Fly by nights?
well, no, when we actually have to do enforcement is really what I'm worried about. You know, if there's contractors that we hire that is to help out with these projects, it's our responsibility to hold them accountable for what they're doing.
Sure.
I just worry about when we reach an end of a trail where nothing's happening and we still have blighted properties and we don't know what to do with them at that point. So, all right, thank you.
Looks like that's it for the housing programs then. Then we have, I don't know if you want to take all the TIF districts together, Dave. I don't know if you have specific comments on some of them.
Well, a lot of the TIFs right now are really just doing debt service and administration, not really spending anything out. I guess I can comment on some of them. So TID 5, which is sort of that business park on Midway. We only have one lot remaining inside the business park itself, which would still be marketing for sale. That one is really not doing anything except for debt service, and it's transferring some money to TID 7 and TID 8, so those are continuing on. TID 6, which is the TID that's was mostly for land assemblage. That's sort of Midway and Parkside area, where orthopedic spine therapy just is located, which is a great project. That one is also just doing debt service. Also paying a little bit to the regional partnership. That's where the other half is coming from. Let me see. TID 9 is Oneida Street and sort of Province Terrace area. That one is still very active. So we're going to be doing marketing in there. We own quite a few properties still. Sewer service extension is going to be proposed in 2017 to extend east for Grassy Meadow Lane. So that can continue to develop down to the south, north of the south. As previously, there was land purchases for the Petrie property and also some Hagen's property to do trail development throughout that area. And also there's the whole Province Terrace street project. So we're doing the street, putting trails and sidewalks in. So that's really the big things in TID 9. A lot of the items end up showing up on, for the trail show up in the park section. For the street improvements end up in the engineering section. But as we're a city, we kind of all go into one. There's a really big change to TID 10. A lot of that has to do with the TID amendment that was just approved. So what you'll see in TID 10, and that is actually on page 188 if you wanted to look at it. So you'll see under urban redevelopment, there's 3 line items there. The last one, award and claim settlements, that's a incentive payment to the grocery store on 3rd Street. But the other 2 that you see there, one is $25,000. I talked just before about a visioning plan for the downtown, and we swept that up Water Street. This $25,000 would be to actually have an engineered construction style plan for improvements. Water Street's designated to be rebuilt in 2020, I believe. And at that time, if you've been down there, I'm sure you've all been down there, there's ample area for trail to go in. I mean, there's a guardrail up there now, kind of acts as a not very easy to use, not very attractive trail right now. But so that $25,000 would be used to actually design that out, and that would actually probably come in after the visioning gets done, see how we want that to kind of lay out. The visioning is going to deal with land use on the north side of the street. This is going to be the documents we can use to start bidding out for construction. And then 90,000 that's in here under acquisition, rehab, and conversion. That's actually broken down into two sections. I alluded to them before. 40,000 would be earmarked for rehab in the Tyco Street area, some of those historic properties in that stretch. But it could also sort of wrap around into the Kakana down there and possibly onto water as well. And it would be both sides of the street. And then that also shows a $50,000 request for the housing rehab, and that would be within that half-mile radius. See what available funds are out there to get those programs working. But that I kind of went into a little bit more detail just before. So that's the biggest changes with 10. See, TID 11 is the Gilbert site. It's on page 189. There's a couple items on there. You'll see a $5,000 request in 2017 budget. That is for site analysis and some engineering work dealing with the canal that's on the Gilbert site and the capped canal that's on the site, working sort of in tandem with Parks Department to do some engineering and see what we can do to possibly remove that canal cap. And then there's also the demolition incentive, the $17,000 that was for the increased timeline in getting that site clean. And so we're still paying on that as well. And I don't know if you have any questions, just stop me or you can take them afterwards. TID 12, which is a very successful TID, that's on page 191. This is your Lake Park Square commercial area, Lake Park Villas, the ponds in Menasha, cottages at Lake Park. So you'll sort of see the pay note, $270,000 to the RDA. There's also a $40,000 line expenditure here. This is for emergency siren in Calumet County, which since I've been here, we've talked about a couple times. So that's still in here as well. You'll see some staff costs in there. There is a big expenditure for development assistance. That's the $110,000 that you'll see. This year it was about $84,000. And this is development assistance for Lexington home development, the homes that have already been built. So there are certain timelines and certain payments that we make in association with those increased development and increased value in that area. The rest, even for TID 12, is really, from my standpoint, is really administration and debt service. You'll see see some money in here under engineering as well as parks, some of the sidewalk stuff. If I go to the next one, which is TID 13, which is our downtown TID, our One Menasha Center. The only real bill that is coming out of that one anymore is a ramp incentive for $168,000, incentive on our ramp on Broad Street. I guess that pretty much runs me through. There's some administration costs in there as well, but that pretty much runs me through the TIDs. So if there's any specific ones that you want to talk about.
Alderman Benner?
Mr. Mayor, I think this is under TID 9. We're been trying to get a trail in from Nature's Way up to Highway 10, 114, and I know we've had some struggles with engineering and things like that. Could you fill me in on where we're at with that, if you know, or if the mayor would know?
Director Tungate's directly behind you, and he's been working on that. So he's probably the one that could answer those questions best.
I have not
So
been
we wake 'em up,
I haven't
or-
been too involved with that trail at this point.
Sometime in 2017, we want to, I guess, re-engage the services of the consultant we've been working with there. We have, some routing concerns there yet. We have, DOT who's not really on board yet with the crossing at 10 and 114. So we have that money in that TID to kind of readdress those issues early next year and sort of get that back on track again.
I thought our biggest challenges were getting through wetlands and things like that and getting the engineering done, and getting the dollars figured out for that?
Well, that's also part of the actual trail design. I guess it hasn't been finalized, but we have some options on how to build through the wetland. There's 2 or 3 different options. One of, we did just look at a newer design recently, something that Heckrod has been using lately for their boardwalk. So we are looking at different design alternatives that may ultimately drive the cost down too.
Okay. So initially, when, I hate to bring this up, but when we had the original grant to install that, we had a dollar value that was going to get us through there, and then when they retracted the grant from us, then we thought we could do it for substantially less money than what the original design was to meet the requirements of the grant. And how are we looking right now as far as the dollars go compared to that? I don't know, we had 2 different numbers. We looked at the initial dollar when we applied for the grant, and then
Right.
the thought of what we could do it for once we lost the grant, which was
I don't,
probably a good $125,000 or $150,000 less than what the grant was.
yeah, no, I don't have a number. I don't want to throw out something that's not accurate there, but it was, with this newer design we were looking at, it was, the price was trending downward, you know, in a good way, with this new design we were looking at. The one thing that's, that we really want to have is this composite decking on the top going through there. We don't want to put just treated lumber on there. If we went with treated lumber, we could drive the cost down a lot, but we don't want to build it that way. We want to build it with a composite decking, and we want to build it right, obviously. So that is part of, I think what we'll be able to do in the, probably maybe in the first quarter of next year, is actually come back to you with some kind of report that would actually answer all your questions that you have.
Okay. All right, is that composite decking, is that what they have over at Heckrod right now?
Yes.
And they aren't having problems with it being slippery or anything like that when it's wet, or?
Heck,
Well-
didn't use that, did they? They have just a regular.
Oh, did you say I'm sorry, I got Gilbert in my head. No, Heckrod used treated lumber.
Right, okay. I didn't recall seeing any over there, so.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I
Okay.
had got Gilbert in my head there for a second.
Okay. All right, well, I look forward to that. And so you're saying that next year we're going to be re-engaging in that? We really
Yeah,
haven't done much on it this year?
the big thing is the routing and the intersection. We're kind of at a stalemate with DOT, that we do want to meet with them again and come back with a plan, hopefully, that they'll approve for us on that crossing, because they're not crazy about a couple different legs of that intersection. There's a lot of truck traffic, and they're just not crazy.
No matter what, we have to get there.
Yeah.
How we're getting across the road is
Right.
no
Yeah,
pun
and
intended,
there's
but another bridge across, you know?
yeah, and there's alternatives to getting across that intersection somehow.
I don't think that should slow us down from getting our trail done.
No, yeah, you're right.
Okay, thank you, Lynn.
Alderman Zelinski, sorry.
Yes, I guess back to tip number 10 with the visioning plan for Water Street. Why are we deciding to get this vision plan done now? Why not wait until we get closer to the date of 2020 when we're gonna be finally doing something like the year beforehand, instead of something can always change in those couple years?
Sure, well, you want to do it far enough in advance. The process, if you truly want it open to the public, takes quite a while to do, full design, vet those designs out, bring alternatives back. You go through Plan Commission, Council, and then also typically when you're going to be doing that bidding for the street reconstruction with the trail element, you're going to be doing that about a year in advance. So if you're budgeted in 2017 year to do the work, your plan is done, hopefully, and knock on wood, and adopted 2018. By end of 2018, 2019, they're sending out for bids to do the work, or designing our own bid specs to do the actual work. So it's just good to have it in advance. That's the main reason for the timing. Also, it would, plays in real nice with providing momentum for the downtown visioning. So you have that, and you say, look, you know, we're starting to implement this vision plan, as well as the reuse of the Coast Guard station as well. You know, that's going to be coming online as a first improvement in that otherwise unimproved area. So it all kind of plays in tandem together, and that's the reason to do it 2017.
Isn't there a downtown vision plan? I guess it'd be a question for the mayor.
There are some plans, but they're well over 15 years old at this point, and our downtown has changed pretty substantial. There's one that I really enjoyed looking at when I first became mayor that Director Kyle pulled up that showed a 6-lane highway cutting directly through the middle of our downtown connecting to Taco Street. So I think we don't want that one, but there's some better ones as well. And I'm sure that we would use those as the starting point as well.
For sure, the amount budgeted for that downtown vision is not a great amount of money for a planning effort like that. So yeah, they would be incorporating all of our old documents, reviewing those, seeing what's still valid. I mean, I wasn't here obviously, but downtown has changed significantly just in the last 2 years from everything I hear, with the open sites and opportunity sites, but as well as some of the development on the north side. I've only gone through here a couple times, but it doesn't seem like the same Main Street when I drive through now than when I did 6 years ago. So it was a pretty fast transformation, and so your planning documents are going to reflect what was on the ground at the time, and they really kind of need to be updated and reflect, you know, what the community vision is now.
Thanks.
Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. Director Stino, do we have an idea of what TIDs are scheduled for closure, say, over the next 5 years or so?
I don't have that completed yet, but I am working on a TID report that'll show you the status of each TID, the debt it has outstanding, its statutory life, as well as when we project it's going to close, and I'm hoping to have that to you by year end.
Okay, thank you.
So we do know that TID 1 will be closing at the end of this year.
3.
3, sorry.
TID 1 closed
TID
last
1 is
year.
already closed. TID 3 will be
so
closing
TID 3 will
at the end
close
of this year.
statutorily beginning in December.
Alderman Collier?
I'd like to backtrack a little bit, go back to the health department.
Let's
Okay.
let's do that at the end.
Well, okay, thanks.
Let's stick with Director Buck at this point. Any other questions? Did you have something else with that, Arnie, or did you just not go on? Okay. Any other questions on the TIDs? And then what did I miss here?
Redevelopment authority.
Okay, RDA and the capital projects funds. Okay, did you want to start out with redevelopment authority?
Sure.
Oh, actually, before we do that, there was a question about the building inspector funding and if that was in the TIFs.
No, that is not. That's all in our community development. Although the housing specialist portion may utilize some of TID 10 administration through that rehab program.
Okay. Okay. Then we can go on to RDA.
For RDA? Okay, RDA has not a lot of expenditures in RDA. What they do have is, what you'll see is a nominal amount of money, $12,000 for legal, and that is primarily for the R.R. Donnelly environmental work and other legal services that are necessary for that site. A very challenging site, and I think multi-departmentally we've been hitting it kind of hard for a short time now. So since I've been here, we have some small amounts of money, $3,250 and $2,500. $3,250 would be for any title work or real estate transactions, CSMs, possibly to change out lot configurations. There is a $61,500 development assistance line item, and that's actually a wonderful line item to have, because what it basically is doing, it is paying for 6 new lots to be developed in Lake Park Villas. So that's the development assistance that we get the developers. So the homes go up there, then RDA sells off more of their majority of lots they have out there, builds the tax base, and gets some more money back into their coffers as they sell the lots. $35,000 is associated kind of with what I had just said. That's the Lake Park Villa Association dues. Those are money that's basically used for maintenance of the common areas, which right now the RDA is more than a majority owner of the lots in the neighborhood subdivision. And to get at, I believe Alderman Collier had mentioned before, was for lot purchases. Down on the bottom, we have buildings, 8201. We have $18,000 budgeted, and that would be anticipation of some possible land purchases. Obviously, it's not a great sum of money, but if they can get some heavily blighted properties and get those redeveloped, that's what that $18,000 was for. And beyond that, the RDA's budget is pretty tight.
Questions about the RDA? Alderman Zelinski?
For the development assistance, so how much is that coming out of our budget? Is that the full 61,000 from the RDA, or is there a grant, or?
Well, that's through RDA. What they basically do is there's a lot purchase. Those are $35,000 to $40,000 for the lot, and then there's a development incentive that if you build a house at a certain value, thereby getting a certain tax base with certain materials, the city will refund or give them assistance in the amount of, well, one of them are about $10,000 per lot, and the other is variable, depending on how long the developer holds it. So we pay off some of their expenses, some of their holding costs on the lot until they sell it and develop it. So the older development agreements had been a variable. Some are high, some are low. The new ones with Vans Realty is sort of a flat fee, kind of trying to take that variability out of there. And that's exactly where it is. And these are budgeted at lots that we either already have purchase agreements on or that we're closing on imminently tomorrow. So we know that the lots will be developed according to the contracts, and so we know how much the funds are going to be.
For instance, does the town of Harrison pay to have their lands developed, or are we just the one that has to?
I can't speak on how the town of Harrison does it. There's other communities that do development assistance. This is a little bit unique in that the properties are actually owned by the RDA. So they have the holding costs on the properties and the loss of income from them not selling. And then the city as a whole has a loss from a reduced tax base of not getting the developments in. So, but there's kind of a check and balance because that incentive also has a minimum requirement of what's built there. So you're not going to get really low quality homes. You're going to get better investment in the property. But I can't speak on how Harrison does that or not.
Okay.
Alderman Collier.
With what's happened in the last 2 years, as far as our projects out on that side of town, it looks to me like we're finally starting to turn the corner and it's going to start looking a lot more positive soon.
I can't speak for the last few years, but I can say the lot sales have probably tripled over the last couple of years, and that could be partially to the housing market, partially just to the attractiveness of the neighborhood. When you get more houses in, more people want to live there. We may be doing something different, from the community development side with marketing next year as well. But yeah, I would have to agree with you that I believe that it is picking up, and we're hopeful that we have a vast increase in lot sales in 2017.
Anything else on the RDA? No? The only other one that we have is the Capital Projects Fund.
Sure, and that is on page 180. All right, and my item is really just that top piece, that 0304. And you'll see there's $135,000 built in there. And as you can see from the text, that's for the Mill Street terminus enhancements, and that's going from Main Street down to the water on Mill Street. I believe that's the last segment of sort of the downtown, last phase of the downtown redevelopment plan. So out of that 135, we would have $15,000 for engineering, and then $120,000 for construction. And you can correct me if I misspeak here, but there's a couple, Kensaki Design came up with a couple concept plans when they went through doing the the walkway and the Main Street crossing in association with tower development. And so we have a couple rough designs, conceptual designs in there. We want to finish that off in 2017, kind of get that last element done. They're pretty, the two designs I've seen are pretty exciting. You've probably all seen them already. They're new to me, but they're pretty exciting. And but that's what basically this $135,000 would be for.
So we should also, I don't know what's going on here, I can't talk very well, but we should also note that Bergstrom Automotive has pledged a $60,000 donation towards this project as well. So the cost isn't the full $135,000, it's $75,000.
And we will be hopefully reusing and utilizing some of the building elements that were left over from some of the demo work on Main as well in this area.
Most notably the bank columns.
Hopefully, yes.
So that will all come back through to the council again. Alderman Nichols, did you decide? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Zielinski. Thanks.
So the other 75,000 that's left, is that just funded straight through the tax roll, or is that through the TIF? Like the walkway?
So this is a contingent project, and Peggy can stop me if I'm wrong. It will only be funded by TIF 13 if there is sufficient funding at the end of the life of the TIF. We are recording it as a city expense with a notation that TIF 13 would fund it if there is sufficient increment. We can't guarantee that at this point. We would hope that there would be, but we can't guarantee that. Did I say anything out of, oh, okay.
What's the urgency on this?
The urgency is we need to continue the momentum downtown. We have building elements that are sitting at the Public Works facility that every year that they sit there, they're going to become less and less stable. So if we do really want to use those historic elements, we do need to get them done sooner rather than later. If it wasn't for the historic elements, it probably wouldn't have as much urgency. But also, I mean, it's one of the focal points of our downtown, the focal point of that new building, and it's very much unfinished. And it's not the image that we want to project in our downtown either.
Also, you want to capitalize on that match. Well, you have the
Well, that
ability
too.
to capitalize on it. It could go away at any time. I don't know if he's written it down that he's guaranteed it.
It's a verbal match
Right.
at this point.
Match. Thanks.
Alderman Nichols?
Thank you for answering my question about the additional cost, because as I remembered, that was a little bit more than $135,000 to complete that. And so, yes, I believe we would want to capitalize on that match while we have it. And this is also the spot where our Memorial Day services are held every year. And depending on the weather, that can be an interesting spot, because it can be muddy or it can be nice, depending upon the weather. And seeing as we do cherish that spot as a community and gather the public there at least once a year, I think it's important to move forward with that project.
Any other discussion on 470 accounts? Anything else for Director Buck before we kind of go back into the CIP, and then we'll talk with any of the other department heads here as well at that point after that. So we'll kind of quickly go through the CIP. We've kind of went through a lot of the 2017 CIP items as we've been going through everyone's budget, and you'll notice that a lot of those things are in there. But as you go through, you'll notice that we have the street improvements, and we have actually 19 streets this year, which is a fairly large number for us, as well as continuing Community Way and the asphalting of that segment out by the LP and 114 intersection. You'll see that we've divided out the stormwater portions of the streets on the next page. It's on page 286, and that would be a listing of all the stormwater portions of the street projects that would be charged into the stormwater utility. That would include both curb and gutter, and if we have any pipe replacements or inlet replacements within those projects. Sanitary sewer, we have a potential lateral rehab program, and this would be to remove infiltration from our laterals. This would require an ordinance change, and there would be special assessments for that program if we move forward with it this year. Right now, we really want to concentrate on the I&I home granting program, which is the third item there. That is the sump pump program that we've all talked about, and we probably have a year or two left of that before that's completely finished. But that will be probably our main focus, and then if we do see that we have additional time, we could move into that lateral rehab program too. That program may be important on the Lake Road area where there's a very large, you could call it a very large lateral or private system that runs basically from Willow Lane all through that neighborhood, that we see some pretty significant infiltration in. The next page has our water main projects on, and those are funded completely by the water utility. There is some additional sidewalk that would, the council, I believe the council as well as the plan commission recommended that we have sidewalk on one side of Province Terrace and a trail on the other. So you'll note that the item 2 under sidewalk projects is both the trail and the sidewalk for that project. And then the portion of the trail that would extend basically from the silos, where the silos used to be, up to LP, is that extension of trail along Highway 114. Underneath that is the final installment of streetlight replacements to LEDs under traffic improvements. Park improvements are the things that we had talked about in the park department budget, including the Loop the Lake project, and you'll note that that 1.2 million is including some of the grant funding that we're getting. Our portion is the 225,000, which we had committed to earlier. Boiler repair, some other miscellaneous improvements throughout the different parks, as well as a partnership with the Park Shelter and Shepherd Park with Habitat for Humanity. We'll be working on that as well. Item 9 on that page is the Province Terrace Trail that Alderman Benner had talked about, as well as some engineering money then above that for the daylighting of the canal that runs underneath what was the Gilbert Paper Company. We had major equipment replacement that we had spoke about throughout the department areas, including the truck that Tim Jacobson had spoke about. I believe that must be the 1991 truck. Some burn building upgrades at the fire department. Build out of City Hall, and you'll see the Mill Street terminus. And there's some money for the evidence storage area and other associated renovations. The public protection facility is the police department as well. And the emergency siren, I had some good news. I did speak to Mayor Hanna a little bit about it, and they're looking at doing a partnership with Outagamie County, and we may be able to work with them to work together on that project as well. They're looking at some sirens in that area and on the borders as well. So we'll keep working on that one as well. And this final page is just a summary of the 2017 TIF projects. Does anyone have questions on any of those items? We have most of the directors here. One of the items that's not in the CIP that it's in the budget though is the carpeting replacement at the library, and I see Director Lunds is here. She wanted me to make sure that I did say that that was floating around in the budget someplace. I don't remember exactly where I saw it, but it was still in there last I looked. Any questions on the 17 items? Alderman Nichols?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to go back to page 288. The sanitary sewer construction. I remember having conversations with Director Radke about I&I, and it's something I don't completely understand. So my questions are, how far are we along with the inspections with the sun pumps?
I don't know if Tim Montour or Adam could answer that? And that would be item 3, the I&I Home Grant Program. I always forget what the second I stands for as well.
Inflow and infiltration.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, infiltrate.
I know
See, I remember
infiltration.
that.
On the island, we are currently, the inspections are done from the Lake Road area to Park Street. So we have to go from Cleveland to the west side on the island. That's phase 4. And in phase 3, we are currently up to Milwaukee Street. And so from the river up to 3rd, Milwaukee to the lake. So that's phase 3. That's what remains in the inspection process.
Okay, and then once the homes are inspected, and I'm assuming people will be asked to install sump pumps in their basements?
Yes, if there's an identified violation, then they are required to correct that violation. And that's where, for the grant program is available to homeowners. It's not available to businesses. But we will do inspection on all properties, commercial, industrial, and residential.
Okay, and then once that's completed, then we're moving on to the lateral rehab or reconstruction?
One of the things that we identified a number of years ago is when we do work on sanitary sewer, the mainline sewer in the streets, there's been a number of different philosophies through the years. There was a number of years that we replaced the laterals to the right-of-way line, to the back of the sidewalk approximately. But with that said, you have new pipe in the street, new pipe up to the property line, but you still have possibly infiltration on the existing laterals. So that's why we wanted to work on the existing lateral, the section that is in the private property. So then there was a number of years we would relay the sanitary sewer in the street, make the connection as close as we could to the, and again, this was all to save money, essentially, make the connection to the lateral as close to the main line as possible. But then again, you have the rest of the lateral could be letting in clear water. So to eliminate a lot of the clear water, we are not identifying, or we're not taking care of a lot of the infiltration areas in the sanitary laterals. Sanitary laterals they belong to the homeowner from the connection at the main all the way to the house. So the city does not own the lateral. The city owns the connection if it's a factory connection. The property owner owns the connection if it's a tapped connection. So that's where that's where the special assessment process would come into play.
Because the property owner would be responsible for replacing the lateral.
Yes.
And do you have an idea of where that process would begin in the city?
We would like to see the rehabilitation of the laterals all the way from the main to the house as soon as we get the lateral program in place. So the next sanitary relay project, say it's on, well, Chute Street, just as an example, and we would relay the sanitary sewer, we would look to replace the sanitary laterals as part of the project. So we would go all the way from the main to the house.
Okay, so do you have an idea of when the lateral program begins, what street would you be replacing sanitary sewers on?
Well, the sanitary sewer replacement will be determined by the televising that we do. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the televising done in advance of the street projects, so then we would have the sanitary sewer, the water main, and the streets all done under one contract. And then we would take, and again, that's why we're trying to identify through the televising with our future street projects where the sanitary sewer is in most need of replacement.
Okay.
So this is likely a placeholder for next year. This isn't something that will be happening likely with all those street projects, if that's what you're wondering, if this is going to be a huge surprise.
Well, I'm thinking a few years out.
Yes.
If we're on the verge of passing a lead lateral replacement ordinance, and then we're looking at a lateral rehab for sanitary sewer, that's a lot of costs being passed on to the homeowner in a short amount of time. So I'm putting that out there, something to think about. And I'll look forward to more information as this plan unfolds.
We did reach out to some of the surrounding communities to see how they handled it. Unfortunately, I don't have all that information with me, but a lot of the communities, surrounding communities, Little Chute, I believe Kimberly, they all, as part of their projects, take the entire lateral, or I shouldn't say take the entire lateral, replace the entire lateral with, of course, a cost share going back to the property owner.
And is that the sort of program that would need to come through council for approval?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe that's what the sanitary lateral program is. That's
Exactly.
the starting.
And this was
starting
actually
point
in
of it.
last year's budget, if you look in the last year, in the 2016 CIP as well. And we had hoped that we would get further on the I&I grant program and then start on this program. And from what Director Radke had told me, they were also looking at some potential for some of the very bad lines. They might actually be, I think they call it pipe bursting.
Yes.
Might be done even without being in conjunction with a street project, because you can actually pull it underground without digging holes now to do this. So there could be potential for this to happen with separate from a street project in some areas that have very high infiltration of clear water that are coming into those laterals.
So do you have an estimated timeline in mind as to when we might see an ordinance come to the council?
I guess we've looked at it the last couple of years, and I guess it's never made headway to the council.
My issue has been, let's finish one program before we start a second one. So that's what I've been pressuring the department to finish with this sump pump inspection program first, and then move on to the next program second. So that's why it hasn't made it forward beyond this point. And then this year, of course, we ended up having a lot of other work to do rather than doing this because of the lack of a director. So we didn't really get a lot of the I&I program done because of the other assignments that we've had staff on because of the lack of the director.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
And thank you.
Okay. Alderman Collier?
You can't sit down yet.
Well, at least there was a reason for you to come. You didn't sit there without a question.
And this might pertain to the lead program that's coming, and we got a $300,000 grant. Is there any way we can tie some of that grant money in and help subsidize what you guys want to do?
I don't think that grant program for the lead piping would be applicable to the sanitary.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with
can't tie 'em both in somehow.
the grant program for but I think that's specifically for the lead piping in the water system.
I just want to use up that free money.
Okay. So I also did add a page at your last council meeting when I handed out the 2018 section. I added the street construction mileage summary on there, which shows that we are replacing about 3 miles of streets in 2017. In comparison, I didn't bring my 2016 budget, but I think it was about 1.5 miles of streets in 2016. It doesn't have a page. It was a separate sheet that was handed out with the 2018 CIP items at the last council meeting. It looks like this. Yep, it was punched. And I don't know if you want me to go through the 18 and beyond CIP items. If you had a chance to look through those, what's the pleasure of the council on that one? Typically, what we'd like to do in the future is we'd like to look at the 18 through 21 CIP, 22 CIP next spring, and that would come out as a workshop earlier in the year, and then we would build our budget off that CIP instead of having those come out later in the year. The 18 through 21 CIP are items, it's kind of our long-range planning list of the items that are needed, and they may not all land in the years that they're in there, but all these items are needed to be done in the future. A lot of them are maintenance or development items that we do need to accomplish in the future. You'll see the Public Works facility and the maintenance shop is in there, Mr. Jacobson. And there's significant roads and other equipment within there as well. Does anyone have questions about those, or would you like me to go through those pages? I see one no. So I take it no.
I have one question.
Sure.
Thank you. Looking ahead in 2018 on page 352, there is the scheduled street construction.
Mhm.
And Mayor Marcus, this is probably a question for you. Would those street replacements also coincide with water main?
The water main
Replacements?
the water main section is a couple pages back. So some of them, so Willow Lane is on there for both. Jefferson Street is on for both. First Street is on for both. Don't see Fifth Street, so. But typically that's on page 356.
Got it.
So typically what we've tried to do is coordinate both the streets with the water mains that are in worse shape and the street pavement that's in worse shape, and prioritize those streets so that we can get the worst streets done quickest.
Thank you.
Sure. Did you not get a copy of the 18 at the last council meeting? Okay. There should have been one at each chair, but we can get you another one. Or I can give you mine. Well, I can. Oh, there it is. Okay. You missed, it looks like you got a couple more that fell out too. So this is really a planning document though for the future. If you see things that are in there that you'd rather see moved up or back a few years, if there's some priority items, please let us know and we can work with the department heads as we move forward on the other items. Then the last item on the agenda then is budget amendments. And we have a couple that need to be done that would be good to get taken care of tonight. If you have any amendments that you would like to do, especially if there's something that are somewhat major, it'd be nice to have the public to actually have an opportunity to respond to those. I'm going to start out with one before I let you go
Well,
forward.
I had one question back.
Back to
Nancy.
Sure.
On the senior center, the basement, how big is the basement and what's all in it?
To tell you the truth, I don't know the size of the basement, so,
Does anybody here?
pardon me?
I've been down there. It's not real big. I think it's like the size of the main room.
Adam knows.
Okay.
Adam knows. Great.
I don't know exact numbers, but I'm going to say about a third of it would be basement of the footprint of the building.
800 square feet?
Maybe. What's stored down there, there is a mechanical room, obviously, for the furnace and data, telephone. The rest of it would be storage for, obviously, I think, for the meal site, other activities. A lot of times there's fabric and quilt for, those folks. It's pretty full all the time, though.
Okay.
But, and, yeah.
My idea.
Looking for an office, Arnie?
I got a better idea, but you're gonna hear in a minute.
Okay. So I do have one change. It doesn't affect the levy, but last year when we did the LED streetlight program, we budgeted as the net because we thought that the incentives were going to come through the utilities, and that would be about the same as the installation costs. We found out that that was not the way it was going to work, that the city actually had to apply for the grants, and those grants came directly to the city. So we do need to amend the budget, both in the budget for the street lighting to include the cost of the installation, and then in the revenues to include the revenue for the Focus and WPPI grants. So what we'd be looking for is a motion to amend account number 100, 1012, 541, 4202, and I can give these back to Debbie, to add $20,000, as well as to add on the revenue side, account number 100, 000, 466, 0000 by $20,000. And that accounts for both the installation as well as the revenue of the incentives. And that's the one that I have. Does anyone wish to make that motion? Alderman Nichols?
Can I just say so moved because you
Sure.
read those numbers real fast?
And I think Debbie has them. There you go. There's a motion, a second.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, whoops, Alderman Zelinski?
Yes, thank you. So how isn't it affecting it by it's being reimbursed through?
So basically, we get a grant from WPPI and Focus for about $20,000, and the cost to install them is also $20,000. So those, last year we had budgeted that those would wash each other, and we thought that Menasha Utilities was going to collect that. Well, we actually collected it, so we need to do the wash.
Oh, so it's just switching out.
Yeah, it's just, we're collecting the check versus Menasha Utilities collecting the check. So it doesn't have really any impact on the program or the budget. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 6-0.
You also have a memo on your desk from Chief Clone, kind of discussing what we had spoke about during his budget session. And it discusses the changes that Mayor Cofford and I had agreed to along with the chief. And if anyone wishes to make that motion or has questions for Chief Clone, we could entertain those at this time as well. Alderman Collier?
Question. I see your numbers. I understand what you're trying to do. Once again, I'm complaining or crying about the dive team. It'll be in the budget for next year. It'll cost us between $15,000 and $20,000 indirectly. I don't know if that'll be in next year's budget. I understand Nina's got a lot more money than us, but now we're supporting, and we didn't go out and trying to find out anybody would help support this on the other side or anyplace else. And as far as going out and getting stuff from the spearing clubs and stuff, that'd be minimal. But I don't know if this will be funded in the future. I know the necessity of it, but I just don't like paying for everybody's projects through our funding. Thanks.
Alderman Zelinski?
On the dive equipment, how did that get jumped up to 20,000 instead of the 10 that was proposed before?
So from the 20,000, it was 10, and because it was originally taken out, and so we were just asking to put it back in, and so 20 is the total, so it would be 8,000 from Menasha portion and 11,800 from the Nina portion. So originally it was taken out totally. So we're asking to put it back in.
The original budget that the fire department had put forth had that $20,000 number in. As I was looking for ways to balance our budget, I had asked to reduce that. And two mayors and the chief sat down and agreed that we could reduce, basically what we're reducing is the extension of the fire hydrant at the training center rather than reducing the dive team suits. He thought those would be much more beneficial to the community at this point.
Correct.
As far as the dive team goes, have the donations ran out for that, or why was this being funded by?
As far as donations go, I think there's about 3,800 left in our trust fund, and so there's still a balance. And then when we look at going into next year, then we'll have some of the monies from the boat launches. And like I said during our discussion for the session last week, excuse me, we'll be looking at the different clubs, fishing clubs, and seeing what we can do to raise money. We have done it during sturgeon spearing, so hopefully now, like I said, after this going forward, it'll be more of a maintenance for the dive team, and it's not more, purchasing of major equipment.
Alderman Keehan?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to increase the fire operations budget by $4,051 and decrease the fire capital budget by $15,063 per the details outlined in the November 11, 2016 memo from Chief Cologne.
So motion and a second. I think it must be contagious, the frog in the throat. Discussion? Alderman Zelinski?
I'd like to make an amendment on here to cut that $10,000 back out of that dive equipment. I think we can find it somewhere else, and this was never supposed to be funded by the taxpayers anyway, so.
So there's a motion to decrease the dive equipment line item from 20,000 to 10,000. Is there it's an amendment to, it's fine, you can amend it. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Discussion on just the amendment at this point. Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you explain what's going to happen to the NINA portion of this if this gets passed?
Who wants to take that one? I can try to take that one. The budget has to be approved by both communities. So if Menasha budgets 10,000 and NINA budgets 20,000, the budget would stand at the lower number because we both agreed up to 10,000. The other way we could look at it is to hold a joint meeting of the two councils and hash out a fire department budget together, if that's how we so desire to do it. But we can only allocate the money that's approved by both councils.
Could you explain again the comment that you made about the lower would be approved? What was that?
But because both councils approved $10,000, that would be what would be in the budget at that point. Then the other council would have approved 20,000, but of that, 10 was approved by both. Does that make sense?
No.
Maybe Peggy can explain it more eloquently than I can.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm told by Nina that that was not part of the merger agreement and it would have to be worked out. So I get what you're saying, and reason would say that what the mayor just said would be what would happen, but I'm told by Nina that that is not part of the merger agreement, that both councils would have to agree on the amount.
That's kind of what I think maybe I was hearing it correctly, and I think I would have been asked for that to be qualified before we would do something like that, because to me that puts a lot in jeopardy to our partnership and with what City and Nina has done at this point, and how we would go forward on that, and how Nina would go forward with their budget.
And that's why typically, the mayors would sit down together beforehand and hash this out before it ever made it to you. Because of our timelines, it didn't work out quite that way this time. That's why the two of us sat down after the last, I think after their council meeting, their budget session, and both of us swallowed hard and said, yeah, we can both live with this. It comes out to the same dollar amount, and we can both live with this. If that is what both councils as well as the chief feel is best for the community. So I'm in support of the proposal that's here. And I think we need to work together as a community, as two communities, and do this. I don't disagree, though, with some of the comments about the dive team was supposed to be donation funded.
Right.
And I think we need to get back towards that. I think Chief Clone has definitely committed to searching far and wide to get us closer to that goal again in the future. And I'm willing to work with him to move towards that in the 2018 budget again.
Well, and as I looked at this, both mayors did agree to this, and I think that's a fair thing to do. The other thing I was going to do, and I really wasn't going to say it publicly, I was going to talk to the chief about this, but before we get into before you start our budgets for next year, I was going to ask, I don't know if a workshop would be appropriate, but at least to get some information to us as far as how it started, how the dollars came about, which the folks have been here, we know how that happened. But then where the dollars have been spent, where we are today, and then with a lot of things we've talked about, of course, with the boat launch fees being added to this, potentially getting some other outside support, and just kind of see really what it's looking like before we go into our budget session next year, so that folks have a better idea and you feel better about what it is that we're doing. And even one of the things that I had talked about, there's been a lot of talk about getting other sources of revenue, or I even talked to the chief about potentially becoming autonomous from the county if that's the case, and getting our own equipment and being self-supportive on it, so that we don't have to provide other support if that comes into the money part of it, that we do it for our two communities and just stay there. But I think there's a lot of dynamics to this and where it needs to go, and I think there's some work that needs to be done so everybody has a better feeling about this. It's hard to believe we have to ask for a better feeling about dive rescue, especially given the area that we live in with all the water we have around us, and we brag about our waterways, but we also know we can't put a fence up around it like a swimming pool. It is vulnerable, and we have to do what we can for our folks that live here, and of course for their children and stuff. So I will not be in favor of the amendment, and I will be looking forward to how this goes, the information that we get from the fire department, and further input from our mayors and staff. Thank you.
Alderman Collier.
So my understanding is down the road, we would sit down with both councils to discuss the budget for the fire department in the future?
That's not what I heard.
No, I thought you said something about you and Dean talked.
Oh.
And the only way we could resolve this is to go back to the councils, even though I know there's not enough time to do that at this time.
If we do not both approve a budget that's the same, I had thought differently, but Director Steno and apparently Director Easker over in Neenah have stated we need to approve the same budget. So if, as of tomorrow night, Wednesday night, Neenah is approving their budget.
Tomorrow, it depends on how long.
Okay. If we approve something different than this, and Neenah doesn't sign on to whatever we approve, then we would have to hold a special meeting for both councils to get together before the budgets are finalized, so that we both do have the same fire department budget. So right now, what we have on the floor is a motion to amend as on the memo, but an amendment to that to reduce the dive equipment line to 20,000, to 10,000. So right now, we're just voting on the change in this memo for the dive equipment to be 10,000. Does that make sense? Just the amendment portion. And then we'll come back for the motion either as it was or as amended. Any further discussion on just the amendment? Could we have a roll call vote on the amendment, please?
Motion fails on roll call 1-5.
And now we have the original motion as it was stated in the memo. Does anyone have discussion on that? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carries on roll call 5-1.
Got the count, huh? So next steps on this is that Chief Clone will get back to us after Nina either approves this same amendment or approves something different, and then we'll move forward depending on what happens there. I think those were the amendments that we needed here, Director Stino. Was there any others?
Those are the only ones that I know of, but we were going to talk a little bit about the tax rate.
Yes.
Do you want to do that right now?
Sure.
So I did have a chance over the weekend to look at the tax rate for the city of Menasha. I did mention something to the mayor today that I think we need to get worked out as far as the way a levy is done for Waverly in Calumet County, because a piece of Waverly's levy actually gets added to the city's levy, and it's not part of the special district. So we do need to get that worked out. But where we're at right now, the rate, the overall rate, and this is, I'm not going to be able to give you exact rates. Well, I could, but they're going to be a little bit different for the different counties. But overall, both counties, city of Menasha tax rate is about $10.58. Which is, I think, pretty close to what we talked about before. However, note that the way it looks right now, the Winnebago rate is actually going to be $10.57, and the Calumet rate $10.65. So there will be about 8 cents in between those rates. That has to do with a few things. One of them is the Waverly piece, for the TID piece of it, as well as the fact that the TID value in Winnebago County is a little bit more and absorbs a little bit more of that piece, because with two counties and everything being based on equalized value, it gets separated at the TID in level first and then gets allocated at the TID out level at the assessment portion. I know that's really confusing. I've been doing this for 4 years and this is my fourth tax rate I'm setting. It's still confusing to me, but I'd be happy to walk anybody through that with the paperwork and everything. But that's what it's looking like right now is 10.5658 for Winnebago, 10.6469 for Calumet. And with the final numbers, 1 penny of tax levy is approximately $9,400.
So that amounts to somewhere around a $23, $24 increase on a $100,000 house on the Winnebago side. I didn't calculate the Calumet side.
You were right on the Winnebago one. Just grab the Calumet one. There are 2 different rates in Calumet County due to the 2 school districts as well.
This is just the city portion,
Right.
not the other portions.
So what was the value of home you were talking about?
100,000, just to use nice round numbers.
So just under $29, Calumet, $28.79.
So the other thing that Director Stino was talking about was the Waverly levy, and there's two portions of the Waverly levy. One portion you will see as part of your City of Menasha tax rate, and one portion will be as a separate line item for Waverly.
No, Waverly's rate is 66.6715, so 67.15 cents. That covers all of Waverly's needs, the 142,000. What's not in there, that's on the city's level, it does get created. The special district tax for Waverly is 45,584 out of their 142,653. The other 97,000 gets added onto our levy, but when we go to do the tax rate, it gets taken off of our levy, the general portion, and put onto the Waverly rate. The TID piece is the piece that stays on the city's levy. Again, I understand it's really confusing,
Clear
but
as
that's
mud,
the way
right?
it works.
I did speak with Kathy again today, just at Waverly, just to get some clarification as to exactly what that's used for and how it's changed over the years. This year, their total levy is $158,000. It had been $138,000 the year before and $137,000 the year before that. So there's a pretty significant jump in that this year. It is used for that is used exclusively for operation, maintenance, and repair of the lift stations. There is another component that's separate from that $158,000 that is the fire protection charge, and that's part of the amount that Director Steno was talking about. So I did ask if all of those could be included in sewer and water rates, as does the Menasha Utilities portion. So we're in 3 separate sanitary districts, or sewer areas, you might call it. The area that is in the downtown, the island area, and some of the area over by Clovis Grove School is in the City of Menasha Utilities area. The area that is the Lakeshore area and the Midway Road area is in the Town of Menasha Sewage District area, and anything east of Oneida is in the Waverly District area. The only one that has a levy that's added on is in Waverly. The rest have that included within their rates. Village of Harrison has a similar problem because half of the village is in Darboy, half is in Waverly. So I'll be making a call next year to see if maybe we could get rates adjusted so that everything would fall within the rates. I don't know if that's possible, but it sure would make life more simple, and it would be much more transparent that the cost of your sewer and water is on your sewer and water bill, not partially there and partially on your tax bill. So, and again, about as clear as mud. But
Yeah, the problem I have with the Waverly levy, or the Waverly Sanitary District levy is more at a higher level. The levy limit increases are super small, like 1.6%, and their levy went from 80,000 to 97,000, which is 21%. That means they eat up that portion of our levy, almost $13,000 more than they should have. The way our budget stands right now, we're very close, and I think we'll be fine, depending again on the remainder of the changes. But before we have a final budget, we do need to make sure we evaluate that to make sure we stay in under the levy limit restraints. I don't think we're going to be tight on expenditure restraint, but we do need to stay in under the levy limits.
anyone have questions about the rate or the sanitary district or any of those items? If you don't, we do have most of the department heads here, or some of the, if you have questions for them or would like to make a change in any of the other budgets, now would be a great time to do that. Alderman Zelinski?
Yes. I know we went over a little bit on the debt analysis, but could you explain it a little to me more on, I guess for this budget that we're going to be passing next time? For 2017, it looks like we're only paying off 35,596. Is that reflectant on, I don't know, do we have grants coming in that it's actually being more? Are we taking on money or developments? And I don't know if that's the actual number, or, because you said based on the 204,000 that we paid in on the debt, we had a $175,000 grant for that, what is it, Oneida Street redevelopment. So what the actual number would be that we're paying down on the debt that we might see back.
So I think I understood the question. I just put up the debt schedule that's in your packet. So the number you were referring to, the 204,000, that's just the change from
Yeah,
one
the
year
change.
to another. So we are paying off the number in the debt retired column. It would just be that we're taking on more in the debt taken on category. So you referred to those special assessment projects, and those were added on. For example, there was one for the Hagen's development, Woodland development, 408,000. That was not something that was planned last year. However, it's on now. And then it was added through a capital budget amendment earlier in 2016. So then we would add it onto our borrowing for 2016, and that would eat into, if you will, how much we were going to reduce our debt. It does have a payback. In that case, it's a pretty quick payback. We have already collected about half of that money. So the question is, there's two ways to go about it. The question is do we reduce the amount we're borrowing so that we only borrow what hasn't been paid off, or do we save some of it so that we can take on the borrowing and make the payments without having the payments having to come from the tax levy in the future? That's what we need to still decide. What I asked for last council meeting and was approved was the authorized amount to be approved by the council, the authorized amount through the budget amendment, and that though all of those authorized amounts will equal us adding 204,000 to our debt load at the end of 2016. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then back to 2017, so what we're paying down on that would be 35,596.
The net change in debt from
net.
16 to 17 would be a negative, right? So we'd be improving our debt load by 35, just under 36,000.
This would be a question for the mayor. What was the number you were looking at for this? I thought we wanted a net change of higher than, well,
The goal is always to pay off more than what we take on. And in 2016, before those two fairly substantial budget amendments, we were paying off a fairly significant amount more than we were taking on. But because of those two development projects, we did go higher. That's what that 204 represents. A lot of what's in the 2017 budget, again, is development related. So we're looking at special assessments for Province Terrace, for the Silver Birch area, for, there's a Hagen's development. Am I missing something else, I believe?
The other piece of the
and
vans,
vans.
350,000, and then the 110, or 100. So 450 of that is for deferred special assessment
Yes.
projects.
So a lot of that is items that are being paid to increase our tax value on our equalized value, and that's important that we keep growing our community and keep working that way. And that's why, because we did come in lower and because we do need to do those things, I'm in favor of borrowing more in that case. We are still decreasing our percentage of debt limit used as well. That's a really important number because that's one of the numbers we're looking at as we go out for public borrowing in the future. They want to see that number closer to 60%.
That would be great.
So that's the number that we really want to hit before we would be borrowing for a public works facility to get the most opportune rates on that facility in the future. So that's kind of the goal, is to push it down that way, but as we both increase our equalized value and pay down our debt, it has a doubling effect on that.
I thought we were looking to pay down like 500,000 a year on our debt.
There wasn't a specific number. Last year was originally about 400 and some thousand
Well,
is
in
what
that
we had on there.
ballpark, yeah.
Yes.
So now we're just doing 36.
It'd be great if it was more.
Yeah. Well, you can change the budget to do that.
We would need to change the budget to do that, and I think that we have a lot of needs in that budget that wouldn't be to our advantage to change that, just so that we can say that that number is, 135 rather than 35. That wouldn't get us a lot of bang for our buck.
Just kick the can down the road. Thanks.
Alderman Collier?
I do see the numbers are slowly improving, so I gotta give you kudos to that, and sometimes that's hard for me to say good going, even though the numbers are small. But now I can't beat up on Kevin and everybody else, but I got a brainstorm here, and it's not the best idea in the world. At first I wanted to find out how much space you had in the basement. You don't have enough space. City Hall's moving down the street. We're gonna spend $240,000 to improve the facilities at the police department. They're very poor, they're crummy, they're disgusting.
I wouldn't say disgusting, but I'll give
They're
you poor.
disgusting.
I'll give you poor.
You wouldn't pass if they had a grade for it. Is there any way we could stay that $240,000 and move the evidence room to this building, seeing that we're gonna heat it and take care of it until we sell it? Just to save the $240 and spend it someplace else? That's what I'd like to know, if it's feasible, and if it is, I wanna put a motion on the floor. But I wanna hear what the chief has to say.
For starters, the 240 is borrowing, just so you know that.
Well, then maybe we won't borrow nothing.
Okay, just so you know that, that's borrowing. It wouldn't necessarily affect the
But if we don't
tax
borrow,
levy.
then we don't know.
Chief Seika?
As far as the feasibility of it, as we discussed in the presentation, what some of our biggest issues are the large type of storage, not only the facility to do it. So you'd be running into one issue in and of itself in the security of it, because obviously there are drugs and weapons and things like that that are stored in evidence rooms. So I'm not sure that being off-site would be the wisest thing. The other issue would be when we get that vehicle that needs to be processed through those larger items. Right now, there's no place to do that at the police department. By this configuration, it would allow it to be in the old evidence room, as we had discussed. That's where large item would be able to be processed. And then the current evidence room would go into the addition, or that part that would be built on. So, I mean, yeah, we could fill this place up for years to come. I don't disagree with you there, but I'm not sure how much it would take to reconfigure this building then to make it a place where you can store that.
Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of comments first, and it could be perceived that some of our borrowings are just to make our budget work, but it's actually investing in development, which is all going to come back to us from either through tax revenues or dollars that will get shifted straight to the properties, things like that. So a lot of our borrowing isn't like it's for our needs, it's investing in the back into the community. I had Brian Tungate when the Parks Department had their budget review. I asked Brian for a couple items and he addressed those, and I thank you for that. And also Alderman Zelinski, I think, asked for some information on the pool, and Brian addressed that with this memo. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Brian. The other thing, one thing I wanted to ask you about is our Port in Place program. Do you know when we started that? He's going to need a microphone.
We had purchased some port in place material in 2010. The crews actually did a small area at Smith Park, probably I'm thinking 2008 or 9, maybe 8.
So we actually started in 2008.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when we actually, to qualify that, when Barker Farm was developed in 2005, there was the pathways put in there. So that percentage in that memo shows you what's been done at Barker. So that was in 2005.
Okay.
So that's probably, but we didn't do that ourselves, that was contracted out.
Yeah, and I was looking at kind of like what we had discussed last week about, actually, when we started, we had a mindset of doing 10% per year. I remember that's what we had talked about. And at this point, we're at 11%. And the way I see it, this will be pretty much a never-ending program, kind of the way, especially as parks change and things like that, so. And at some point, I would assume we're gonna get into some replacement. Do you know what the life expectancy of this is?
It can be anywhere from 10 to 15 plus years. It really depends on how much wear and tear it gets. A place like where the children are at the schools, it's going to have a shorter lifespan than one that's in a small neighborhood park.
And even like Jefferson Park, well, we're at 26% of Jefferson Park is done. And I know we don't have our master plan for Jefferson Park yet. And my fear is we continue on this path, which needs to be done, but if we end up tearing it back out, then we kind of lost all of that if that equipment's relocated.
That's why we stopped where we did.
At Jefferson, so we're not doing any more at Jefferson?
At this point, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. That's, I guess, good to hear. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Crowcramer.
Director Tungate, since we're on Jefferson, and we all know we're working on a master plan, it was brought up earlier that there's a scoreboard in the budget for $6,000. I remember you saying something about it not being an issue to move. Could you just reiterate what the scoreboard is, where we're putting it, and whether it's a problem or not?
We'll be putting a scoreboard on the east diamond. From what we've been told by the vendor, you know, we have the posts out there, you know, the I-beams, just a matter of hanging it, taking the old board down and putting the new one up. And if we, 5 years from now, want to move that board, we can move it. It's probably going to be a wireless board. They've come a long way with the technology there, so there's no underground wires we'd have to worry about.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have general questions or want to make any amendments? Alderman Zelensky?
I'd like to make an amendment on the building inspector car. I'd like to cut that in half. If they could find a used vehicle to do that, I think it'll be more than proficient. $10,000 used car is pretty nice, and I don't think it'll have any maintenance problems or issues for quite a long time.
Yeah, I just need to help you find
well,
it here.
There's the one that's in, let's see, CIP, there's one, and 292, and
It's in the Public Works section.
Public Works.
This should be on page 208, most likely.
215.
That's close. Okay. So there's a motion on the floor to reduce line 741, 1023, 541, 8003 motorized equipment by $10,000, specifically the building inspector car from $20,000 to $10,000. Do we have a second? And the motion dies for lack of a second after I made you write all that down. Okay. Anything else that anyone would like to talk about this evening? If not, I would, well, before we do that, if anyone has questions for the department heads before the next meeting, that would be good. Please contact them and we can get answers out to everyone then, so everyone knows what those questions are and what the answer was before the next meeting. We'll try to get those out via email ahead of time. And then the next council meeting is the meeting that we would typically adopt the budget at. So we'd hopefully have those items before we actually spring them on people at the budget. Alderman Keehan?
Thank you. Will you be contacting the two aldermen who are absent to relay that same message to them so that we don't
Sure.
get here and just rehashing?
I can definitely do that.
Thank you very much.
And if there's no other items, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Can I just mention one thing real quick?
I
This
guess
is just-
not.
It's just a correction, but I just want to make sure it's okay for me to make it. In TID 5, there's some authorized sharing that's happening, and this is a 2016 estimate, so it's on page 178 and 179. The amount is correct, it's just in the wrong account number. So if everybody's on page 178, if you go to the second line from the bottom, 457-0469, 591-2502, that 24,748 should really be on page 179 under account number, the first account on the line, on the page 457-0475, 591-2102. So it's just a 2016 estimate that would move from one account number, 457-0469, down to 457-0475. And it doesn't impact the 2017 budget at all.
Okay. Doesn't look like there's any objection to that. And I think Alderman Keehan had a motion to adjourn, if I remember right, a couple minutes ago. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Broadcasts of the City of Menasha Administration Committee, Board of Public Works, and Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Menasha residents and interested parties can obtain information about these meetings and meeting agendas from the city website, www.cityofmenasha-wi.gov. Expression of opinions regarding City of Menasha issues or about these broadcasts can be made by contacting the Mayor's Office, 920-967-5117. Contacting their city alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Completing the electronic feedback form on the website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.